For nearly 50 years, the Son of Sam case has remained one of the most infamous criminal investigations in American history. Officially, David Berkowitz acted alone. The case was closed. End of story. Or was it? Today, we're taking a closer look at a man whose name is often overlooked in discussions about the Son of Sam case. Craig Glassman. Glassman wasn't a detective signed to the case. He wasn't a prosecutor. He wasn't a journalist. He was David Berkowitz's downstairs neighbor in Yonkers. In the summer of 1977, Glassman reportedly received threatening letters. Glassman would later claim he played a much larger role in the arrest than many official accounts acknowledge. Now, nearly 5 decades later, newly released recordings known as the Craig Glassman Tapes are generating renewed interest among researchers and true crime enthusiasts. These tapes, recorded in 1979 and recently made public through the Freedom of Information request, reportedly contain Glassman's recollection of the investigation, the arrest of Berkowitz, evidence recovered during the case, and questions about whether the official narrative tells the whole story. But what exactly is contained in these recordings? How reliable are Glassman's claims? And do these tapes reveal new information about one of America's most notorious cases, or did they simply add another layer to an already complicated mystery? For viewers who are unfamiliar with this case, it's worth remembering that David Berkowitz was found guilty. He pled guilty of the unalivings, the Son of Sam unalivings, in 1976 and 1977. These unalivings terrorized New York City and left 6 people dead and 7 wounded. David Berkowitz and Son of Sam has inspired decades of debate, including theories popularized by Maury Terry that Berkowitz may not have acted alone. And before we get in it today, guys, you know what to do. Please hit that subscribe button and give us a like. Don't forget to hype this video as well to help us out in these algorithm streets. As always, we are a grassroots channel. That means that we are funded by viewers like you. So very, very, very special thank you to all of our Patreon producers and our Patreon supporters, as well as our supporters over on Substack and our YouTube membership. YouTube membership is something we've been doing for a few months now, and I know I've truly been enjoying it. If you would like to help support the channel in any way, those are the options that you can use to support us. If you're interested in our YouTube membership, here is a quick sneak peek at what is going on over on our YouTube memberships. If you want to join us, you can hit the join button below. After this sneak peek into our YouTube memberships, we will get into the episode. If you think the stories we share publicly are intense, you haven't seen anything yet. Our YouTube memberships are where we go deeper, way deeper. This is where we dive into bloodline conspiracies that most platforms won't even touch. The hidden family connections, the power structures behind the scenes, the patterns that start to emerge when you really begin to connect the dots. We're talking about the theories that question everything: history, influence, legacy, and who might really be pulling the strings. But this space isn't just about information. It's about exploration. It's a place for open-minded discussion, deeper research, and uncensored curiosity. A community of people who aren't afraid to ask the bigger question and look beyond the surface. If you've ever felt like there's more to the story, then this is where you need to start digging. Join our YouTube membership today and unlock the exclusive deep dives, member-only lives, and conversations you won't find anywhere else. Because some truths, they don't just live on the surface. If you would like to join us in our YouTube memberships, you can hit the join button below. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. Today, we're going to call it Esoteric Atlanta, the podcast. We've got your favorite, as I say every episode, your favorite investigative journalist. I don't know if you consider yourself that, Chris, but I do, because you do way more research than the average mainstream media journalist. We've got your favorite criminal investigative journalist, criminal justice Chris here, and I'm really excited about, this Son of Sam case, Chris, is just the gift that keeps on giving. There's so many rabbit holes. There's so many side stories and side quests to this overall case, and it's just so fascinating. But before we get into it today, Chris, how are you doing? How's Mercury retrograde treating you as we enter into the follies of Mercury retrograde?
It's not been great. I've been experiencing some problems here and there with my Medium account, as well as my computer and other technological issues. And I guess that you're experiencing some problems too.
I am, you guys. I am. If you are a part of Fusion Buddy Studio, we had an issue with Stripe, which is the platform we use to collect payments. A lot of businesses use Stripe. It's very common. And because we switched websites, we now are on a new website. It wouldn't allow us just to plug up our old Stripe account to the new account. And so it ended up canceling all of our subscribers. And if you're listening and you're on Fusion Buddy Studio, if you have not heard from Paula or me yet, we're in the process of reaching out to everybody. Just know we're getting it sorted for you to basically just put your information back in. But that was a very scary ordeal to go through. And I thank you, Chris, for being willing to postpone for a day so I could handle that snag with what Mercury retrograde does. This is just what Mercury retrograde does. And so at least we can laugh about it. I know that StreamYard is also having some issues, guys. That's what I'm on right now with Chris. So if there's any snags in us showing stuff today, that's why it's just StreamYard. I've seen other podcasters having some issues with StreamYard too. So hopefully this episode will go smoothly, but in case there are hiccups, guys, that is why. So Chris, kick it off today. What are we going to talk about today?
I received a new release through the Queen's DA with additional tapes a few months ago, and what we're going to be discussing is Craig Glassman, because they released 3 Craig Glassman tapes to me that were previously unreleased in other FOIA requests in the past.
And so, guys, as we've been doing for all these release tapes, we're going to wait, and they're going to be played at the end of the episode. So just hold tight for that. For any references we make in this episode, they will be at the end. You'll be able to hear. Chris has very kindly provided them for the podcast so that you guys, so nothing is we're not gatekeeping any information. It is there for you to listen to as well. And so before we get into Craig Glassman and this whole fiasco, is there anything else you want to say about the tapes, Chris, before we move into it, just for our audience, since it is Mercury retrograde, just for our audience to know?
Yeah, we're in a shadow period for Mercury retrograde. It's going to start here pretty soon. And then, of course, we're in Aquarius and Pluto cycle. So on top of that, we might as well expect shit to blow up for the foreseeable future in the next, 8 weeks related to technology problems.
Oh God, it's, I have such resistance to technology anyway. I for some reason, my partner's really good. He's really good with technology, but that is the worst. So you guys do not buy any new cell phones right now. Don't get any new laptops. Don't sign any contracts.
Yes.
Like that. Kind of the Mercury retrograde thing. But also the positive part of Mercury retrograde is a great time to complete a project you're already working on. But nonetheless, any communication, don't take it too seriously, miss text, miss typos, all that kind of stuff. So with that being said, it's kind of funny, Chris, because this whole Son of Sam case kind of revolves around esoteric occultic knowledge. Here we are starting off talking about Mercury retrograde. Have you learned a lot, just before we get into it, have you learned a lot more about the occult studying this case for so long than you previously knew?
I haven't probably studied as long as some other people. Frankly, whenever I first started researching the case in June, it was in May or June of 2022 where I really started looking. I was familiar with it before. I just didn't research it as much. I will say that there are probably other people who are better versed in the case than myself, because they've researching long, but in specific areas, yes. And as for the occult, that is something that I just started studying in 2022. And I was able to catch on to it fairly quickly. I had an understanding of tarot cards before then because of a school project that I did in college, where I applied tarot card imagery to T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was a really long time ago. So
it wasn't that long ago. Chris, was only like 5 years ago, right? No.
yeah, well, no, that was well over 15 years ago.
Yeah, but it's so fascinating, and it's so hard with the occult and with esoteric practices. For people who have been studying it for a really long time, it's really hard to play catch up, and I think that's part of what gets lost in the Son of Sam case. Because, in my opinion, the Son of Sam case is heavily steeped in occult and esoteric practices, but from people who've been doing it for a long time. And when you're first starting to learn about this stuff, it's very fascinating. Anyway, in my opinion, it's really fascinating, the magical aspect of these rituals and what these groups actually believe is really, really fascinating. But other than that, it that opens up a lot to this case anyway. And so speaking of Mercury retrograde, that's more of the astrology side. But anyway, let's get into it, Chris. So who is Craig Glassman? Where do you want to start with this whole case? Like, where do you want to start talking about the Glassman tapes and that kind of stuff?
Okay, well, Craig Glassman was David Berkowitz's neighbor below him. Glassman moved into his apartment underneath David Berkowitz on March 15th of 1977, I believe. He moved in there following separation from his first wife. And Berkowitz sent him some threatening letters as well as others. He was part of the triangulation with the letters sent with the Casaras and
Right.
the Cars and then Glassman.
So Glassman moves in under Berkowitz, the apartment building, March of 1970. That's like on the heels of Berkowitz's arrest, because he was arrested August of 19. Is that correct? August of 1977.
He was arrested August 10th of 1977. Yes.
So this was kind of in the real heat of Son of Sam.
Yeah, it had already started, and Craig Glassman apparently had the propensity to be a little bit of a noisy neighbor. At one point, he was playing his television too loud in the middle of the night, and Berkowitz phoned his residence and chewed him out. Didn't identify who he was, but he was under the presumption later on that it was later David Berkowitz.
Interesting. So, and that's the other letters. We know that there were letters sent to, again, as you said, two different people regarding noisy dogs, right? One was the Cars, correct? That, the son of Sam Carr and his kids, that his dog was apparently pretty noisy. Is that correct? Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, there were allegations that the dogs were being noisy. And then with the Casaras, he left the Casara residence because of a confrontation. The agreement, whenever he moved in, he had discussed the dogs with them. They stated that the dogs were kept inside and not noisy.
Right.
During specific times of the day. They didn't follow through with that agreement, and he was losing sleep, which isn't good whenever you're working second or third shift.
Right.
And it got to the point where it wasn't tolerable anymore, and he blew up, and it was about 4:00 in the morning, I believe, on the 4th of April of 1977. And he got into it with the Casaras and stormed off and left, and then he moved out on the 8th of April, 4 days later, and took up residence at the Pine Street. And he had already been planning on moving. It's been framed by other podcasters that the move was just sudden, and that's not accurate. If you look at his lease application, he had applied in March.
but if you take the whole Son of Sam out of the situation, like the confrontations with noise just seems very normal, like a normal situation a lot of people find themselves in, especially when you're renting a space. So I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, like I live in the middle of Atlanta, Georgia. It's noisy. Our neighbor upstairs is really noisy. And so noise complaints, apart from Son of Sam, it seems pretty normal. Now, there were letters sent to the Gazaras and to the cars. Now explain that. Has David admitted to sending those letters? Do we know for sure it was David sending those letters harassing, or is
like that when the FBI ran the letters, they said that it was inconclusive. They couldn't determine the Son of Sam letters, and I believe that also applied to the letters written to the Casaras and Glassman. I don't quote me on that though. I would have to recheck, but I'm pretty sure that they did a handwriting analysis on all the letters, and they said that they could not conclusively state. But I do believe that he wrote the letters, obviously, to the Cars and Glassman. I don't know about if all of them are authentic, obviously, but he did write at least some of the letters.
And this is for the young people listening. This is a very different time. This is the 1970s. There was no internet. When people called your house on the landline, at this point, you didn't know who was calling you. When I was a child in the 90s, when caller ID came out. So that was the way of communicating, was writing letters or calling somebody on the actual telephone on the landline. So now you said, so he moved into Pine Street in April of 1977, but Craig
he moved in. Craig Glassman moved in March of 77. David Berkowitz moved into the Pine Street address in April of 1976. So he was there about a year before.
Okay, cool. And so this guy moves in. He's recently separated, and it's kind of the same situation, I'm assuming, where he's losing sleep because he claims his TV is too loud.
He claims his TV is too loud, and he had other problems with Glassman too. He must have set him off. I haven't received really a positive confirmation as to why he threatened him. I know that Shayna Glassman was also seeking answers from David Berkowitz. She was in contact with him from 2015 until 2020. They don't speak anymore, but she wasn't able to obtain any answers from David either, related to the father. And I've been asking some questions, and I've gotten some answers related to the August 10th arrest date, as well as some other various incidents. But for the actual reason for targeting Craig Glassman, I can't really give an answer for that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's again, noise complaints are really, really, very common in cities, even to this day. But to get that obsessive with targeting people, that's why I wanted to know, like, do we know for sure? But, listen, losing sleep, especially if David was out at night with this, what I believe was the cult, losing sleep can make you do irrational things sometimes. So, So where do you want to go from there, Chris, with this story?
I guess we can talk about the blogs a little bit. First of all, Shayna went to see David Berkowitz and wrote him for years to try to obtain answers. Just for clarification to your audience, Craig Glassman died in an accident in November, I believe it was 1991. He was driving along the Taconic Parkway. He wrecked his car, hit a tree, and died. There have been some allegations. People have wondered if his death was faked. No reason to believe that his death was faked at this point.
Why do people believe that? Why would people jump to that conclusion?
It's a conspiracy theory laden community. And Shayna Glassman has flat out said, based on some of the circumstances and the way things can be interpreted based on the case alone, she understands why people could jump to some of these conclusions.
Right.
But yeah, she said that she viewed her father's body, and she was approximately 4 or 5 years old whenever he died, and she can confirm that he was dead. It took me a little bit to get a police report on him, but I got the police report. I provided it to you. It's in my blog. For the state of New York, obviously, I can't order a death certificate. I can't order an autopsy. A family member has to do that. The general public is not entitled to that information. Now, you can pull up like a Social Security death index, and it shows that he is in the death index. As for providing a death certificate, I don't think that's really appropriate for me to ask Shana Glassman to provide that. If she wants to give something like that in her book, and I have given her directions on how she would be able to obtain an autopsy if she wants to do that, because I think that she also has questions surrounding her dad's death, obviously, especially in light of the witness that was at the crime scene.
How old was her dad?
Or I guess I shouldn't call it a crime scene. I should call it an accident. I'm not sure how old her dad was at the time of the accident. I'm gonna think he was in his late 30s off the top of my head.
Yeah. So, and that was in 1991, and so he would have been very young at the Berkowitz during the Berkowitz time when he was living on Pine Street.
Yes, he would have been in his late 20s. I believe that he was probably about 4 or 5 years older than David Berkowitz.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So now there's speculation, like some people think potentially, and this gets into conspiracy as well. Now, actually, before I get into that, let me just, in my research here with a lot of other cases and reports of people faking their death, I just want to say, first of all, to fake your death in the United States is a crime. It is a felony. And people who can do it, who can potentially do that, have to have a lot of resources to be able to do that. It takes a lot of money to be able to start a new life. And that gets into like the Mara Murray. A lot of people think Mara Murray faked her death and ran off to Canada, but the reality is, for most people, that's just not a possibility, and it is a felony. It is against the law to fake your death. So I just wanted can people do it? Yeah, obviously they can. Have people done it in the past? Yeah, but the likelihood of a middle class average person being able to pull that off is very, very slim. Now, why does his daughter believe that there's more to this accident than what they're telling us? Because they're telling us it was an accident, right? It was just a fluke accident, and he lost his life.
I can't really answer that. I think that she would probably be able to answer that more when her book comes out. I'm not going to speak on her behalf, but
what do you speculate?
I mean, I don't myself. I don't really know what to think. I mean, there have been a lot of people that are connected to the case that have died under mysterious circumstances.
Right.
I think it looks suspect just based on what is stated in the report and the witness. I have more questions. I don't think he faked his death.
Right.
That's my personal opinion. I think he's dead. There's no reason for me to believe otherwise at this point. But, I mean, based on the suspect alone, not the suspect, the witness, it looks questionable because, I mean, you can pull it up here if you want to show the audience.
StreamYard will let me see if it'll let me. StreamYard is going to be, go ahead and start talking about it while I try to pull it up, Chris, to see if StreamYard will allow me to do that.
Okay, it was a government special ops employee. So you have, it looks, to me, it looks suspect. You have to question if people are questioning the reasons for his death or whether he's alive, and then seeing the witness at the crime scene, and what the actual witness is, what the witness did for a living, you have to question. And whenever the FOIA release was given to me on October 30th of 2025, and I started looking into the witness almost immediately because it's a fairly generic name. His name is John Thomas.
Yeah.
And his address is in the report. And of course, this was really almost pre-major data accumulation days, for the internet. So they probably didn't expect that people would be able to find who this guy was or his job. So I started looking for him online based on the name and the address. And then I came to this website and I gave you the MP4 of it, which showed that he was special operations for the United States government. I discussed this in my blog. I did not include a screen print of it because I didn't want to include the addresses or any type of family member names or associate names that could pop up in the blog, just because that's not good judgment. And it could be construed as doxing under the right circumstances. But I made an MP4 of it because I suspected this has happened before. Whenever I've found things will disappear.
Right.
From online after I publish it. So I've gotten to the habit of as soon as I'm finding something, taking a screenshot of it or getting it recorded on MP4, because I've had too many weird experiences over the last 4 years.
That's happened to me many times in my deep dives into certain topics in the past, especially the Hess Act. So the minute I started talking about the Hess Act, all of the websites I cited and stuff, all of a sudden were 404 page not found. So I absolutely get that. That might make us sound like conspiracy. It's true, guys. These things disappear sometimes when you're trying to get to the bottom of something, when there is a national story that they want you to believe the narrative, and there is a huge number of people pushing back. This will happen. That's why I think it's also important to maintain holding on to actual books too. But yeah, so I have that information, guys. And yes, this is his, and I pulled it up. I don't want to touch it too. I don't want to move the screen too much because, as Chris and I, before we went on, we don't want to dox anybody. So we want to make sure private information is withheld, especially even if people are no longer with us, we will still want to respect privacy. But yes, you found out he was special ops, correct?
Yes, I did. And since then, if you go into my blog, where it's an FOIA release from Yorktown Police Department following up on Craig Glassman's Taconic Parkway accident. I mean, you'll want to be careful when you click on this, Bryce.
Okay.
But I listed the witness information and I listed a link. And the last time I clicked on it, it didn't show the job anymore, which I said that did not surprise me because I've had this problem before for the last 4 years.
Well, I am going to pull it up, you guys. Her blog, let me just, and if we see anything that we need to stop looking at it, then, oh shoot. See, what is it doing? Let me see.
If you go down and you see where it says witness John Thomas and you see the name, and you'll see the hyperlink underneath it. All you have to do is click on it.
Let me see here.
And people should be able to match the hyperlink up between that and what you just shown on the MP4.
So I won't click the link, just not to dox anybody, but I'll put, obviously, you guys, I always put her blogs down in the description box below. But this is it. This is the blog that she's speaking about. And so let's stop on it. So there's some weirdness around this car accident. So what exactly, I know it's in your blog, but what exactly happened in this car accident that makes it so strange?
Well, specifically the accident. It's not the witness. I can't say that the accident is particularly strange because, as Shana Glassman said, her dad was known for speeding.
Yeah.
And the Taconic Parkway can be dangerous. There's a lot of accidents on the Taconic Parkway. So, you can't just automatically say, well, it's suspect.
Right.
Because he honestly could have died. But he also died around Samhain, November 1st, November 2nd. That's when that's when the accident happened. And there's a trend in this case for people to meet their demise around occult holidays. So that's one question. And then you have the next question of the police report with the witness. And another podcaster, whenever I sent this over to them, they did have questions that he wasn't pronounced dead on the scene, that he was still shown as unconscious. So I think that's a valid point. But there, like I said, I don't have access to be able to get an autopsy report. Shayna is trying to be as transparent as possible. I started working with her about a year ago. After bridging contact with her, Carl De Niro had given me her phone number and her email because of allegations that had been made by Manny Grossman, that Carl shook her down for a $50 basically $50 for an autograph for his book, which is total malarkey. It never happened.
No, he's offered to autograph books for my channel before for giveaways. That is what I know of Carl, and what I know that's BS.
I mean, and in Manny's defense, he got it from a third party who was not accurate. All the same, Manny Grossman criticizes Maury Terry for using third party sources. And he probably should have verified whether this was true or false before publishing that on a blog that's now defunct. The person has taken the blog down, but everything's been captured on it. Regardless, I mean, we've discussed Manny Grossman on your podcast before. The ironic thing is, if he hadn't fractured his relationship with Carl De Niro and Shayna Glassman through his online behavior, which has been an ongoing problem, as you know, with multiple people. It's not just them, it's you, it's me, it's other podcasters, it's people that he previously podcasted with. If he had remained an amicable working relationship with these people and hadn't defamed them online, he probably could have gotten a straight answer regarding the alleged $50 for the autograph. But he didn't reach out to any of them. Instead, he said, so-and-so said this, and he said it on a blog. And it was not accurate, and I reached out to Shayna Glassman for comment, and then she gave me the background related to everything that had happened with Manny Grossman and some of her other experiences within the community related to social media, and the experiences that she's had and other people have had are just it's sad.
It is sad. It's all the same, and at that point, if you're just basically just your whole podcast or blog is hearsay, then you're nothing but a drama channel at that point, a gossip channel. And so I absolutely agree, and that's what's hard, I think, about the Son of Sam case too, Chris, is because so many. I mean, it happened 50 years ago. We're coming up on the 50-year anniversary, but a lot of the people, the players involved, are no longer with us, but a lot of people are still with us, and children like Shayna Glassman who are still affected by this, and Carl De Niro, they're David Berkowitz himself, and so at that point, we're looking at these old cases. There has to be a lot of care, especially since people are still alive that were deeply affected by this story, and I think a good I think you're good at that, Chris, about having humanity for people and remembering their humanity. And I make my best effort. I mean, nobody's perfect, but yeah, I make my best effort. So there is speculation too that there are people who believe that Craig Glassman might have been a part of the cult. Is that true, Chris? That there are people?
Yes, people do believe that. I can't say one way or the other. And I know that Shayna had attempted to get answers out of David, and he didn't give her any answers for 5 years.
Right. Why do people believe this? What is the evidence that we have to say that this could be a possibility?
I believe it has to do with, I believe I don't have confirmation of this because I don't have his job history at this point, but I believe that Craig Glassman at one point worked for Whack and Hut in Florida, And I don't know how familiar you are with Wackenhut, but Wackenhut is known for having ties to the intelligence community, such as like the CIA. I believe George Wackenhut had ties to the CIA. I haven't really looked into Wackenhut a whole lot.
What is Wackenhut? Like, what do they do? Like, what's
They're a security. They were in security, kind of like IBI security.
Okay, so
But Wackenhut had, I believe, ties to like the CIA and the FBI, alleged. On top of that, from my understanding, and it's been put out there, and I haven't confirmed this with Shana Glassman because I haven't really discussed this with her in great detail. I believe that there were some thoughts that maybe there was something to do with the Way International. I don't know if you've heard the Way International.
Can you jog my memory? That does sound very familiar.
They're a Christian organization, but I think that they also do. They were doing auditing sessions. I wouldn't compare them to Scientology, but you know how you sit down people for counseling.
Yeah.
It would be similar to that. But whenever David Berkowitz purchased his gun on June 12th of 1976, he traveled down to Florida and then over to Texas, and he allegedly stopped at a Way location to drop something off.
Okay.
And I believe that Craig Glassman was connected to the Way somehow.
The Way, yeah. Okay. I mean, listen, there could be the Way Christian Ministries. Would that be the same organization?
Just type in the Way International.
The Way.
But I mean, like, they have a different type of theology. If you type it in, they think that Jesus Christ was born on 9/11.
I've heard that before. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so there's a lot of speculation. Okay, this is giving me. I've worked with other people who have claimed that as well, and that's why I did not realize it came from this group. So they're more conspiracy based. It sounds like the Way. I can't make a comment on the Way International. I have nothing to say on them because I haven't looked into them that much. I don't know, and I haven't questioned Shana Glassman about the Way because I don't really feel like that's appropriate for me to do. Right.
You know,
well,
I mean, her dad died whenever she was 4.
Right.
She probably doesn't know a lot and I mean, frankly, there have been enough conspiracy theories about her and her father. Whenever somebody has lost their dad whenever they're 4 or 5 years old and they've tried to seek questions in order to obtain closure, I don't feel like doing it.
I know. And I will say, guys, leave her alone. Like, let her live her life. Everything, all the information you're giving me right now, that in our audience right now, that gives people reason to believe Craig Glassman could have been part of this cult. It's all circumstantial. Yeah, he could have worked for an organization tied with intelligence. Yeah, he could have been part of a weird Christian cult, but that doesn't necessarily mean he was involved in Son of Sam. Multiple things can be true. And for her, I get so mad about this because even when we look at the powers that be, the establishment, I'm working on right now, guys, a big series where we're going to be going over the bloodline families. And I say in every single episode, just because somebody has a last name does not mean that they're involved in this shit. She was 4. My grandfather passed away when I was 4, and I have 2 memories of him, and so I feel my heart goes out to her. But I will say, I will be more than happy if our audience wants to do a deep dive into the Way International, because that kind of is up my alley of research.
Yes.
And let us know, guys, and separate from Son of Sam, separate from all this, if you guys want a deep dive into the Way International, let me know, and I will definitely do that if that's something our audience wants. And I'll be more than happy to send you over my notes, Chris, too. If I won't do it for Son. I'll just do it as its own individual deep dive. But then I can also send it over to you guys too if you want to look and see what I dug up.
I will say too, in some other people's defense, Craig Glassman has not been the most reliable or honest person in the Son of Sam case, and Shayna Glassman acknowledges that. He wrote a book with the help of Charles Williford, following the rest of David Berkowitz, Off the Wall. A lot of the information in Off the Wall, Shayna has acknowledged is complete fiction. Some is accurate. I call it more like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term faction, FACTION. Yeah, I call it faction. It's like a mixture of fact and fiction. There,
Why do people think, like, why would he be so unreliable with his recollection of things? What do you think is going on there?
I think that there was a need for attention and feeling like his voice was not heard. And there might have been some embellishments for that. I can't really explain why he did it. I mean, I don't know the man. He died whenever she was, 4 or 5 years old. I don't even think she has an explanation other than knowing her dad's book is not factually accurate. But that, he was also being harassed, not only by David Berkowitz, but once he spoke out to a magazine following the arrest, he received a string of harassing letters as well, right, from people.
Well, and listen, I mean, I believe that there are very powerful people behind the Son of Sam, so I could understand why someone might get scared and start changing the story just to protect themselves. In my opinion, I think Berkowitz himself has done that to protect himself, and I can't blame someone for that.
Where Glassman has changed it is a little bit different. Like he was present for the August 10th arrest of David Berkowitz.
Right.
If you listen to the DA tapes, and I've had conversations with David Berkowitz since then, it's listed in my blog, because I wrote about the blogs first and then I mailed them to him. And he said a good portion of what was said in those district attorney tapes is not accurate. And this also applies to his book, Off the Wall. He overemphasized his role in their arrest, according to David.
Okay, so let's go. Can we go back to the arrest and what we think his role really was as David's neighbor?
Essentially, what happened is, because he was able to identify David Berkowitz, they wanted him to sit in the car with him and identify him whenever he came out of the building.
Easy peasy.
And they ran across him because he had come out of the building and he had approached his car. Okay. And he turned around to go back in, and they freaked out and they thought maybe he was David Berkowitz, because they didn't have an image of him. At the time, driver's license photos were not on cards. I can't say that they weren't on all cards. They were not on David Berkowitz's card, according to his memory.
That's so fascinating to think about that nowadays. But I mean, listen.
Yeah, the state of New York, I looked into this with driver's licenses, and this is kind of boring, but they started issuing photos on driver's licenses in the early 70s, but it wasn't statewide until much later.
That's wild.
Yeah, David doesn't believe his image was on his driver's license at that point.
They didn't really even have a government issued picture of him to know for sure who was who. And in New York, given David's, complexion and what his how he looks, that could be anybody, right?
Yeah. So basically the story is Glassman approaches the car. They think that Glassman is Berkowitz. They say, They make him identify himself. He pretty much laughs and says, "No, I'm not David Berkowitz, and he was a volunteer with the sheriff's department at the time." And he wasn't aware, according to his DA tape, that the people that he was talking with were from the NYPD. I believe he assumed that they were Yonkers. Yonkers was there as well. But he sat in the car and then waited And whenever he came out and approached his vehicle, he said, "That's him." And then from there, in the district attorney tape, he starts by saying he got out of the vehicle and that the other officers did not draw their guns, and that he is the person that drew his gun and put it to David Berkowitz's temple at his vehicle, and told him to turn off his engine. The engine was not turned on, according to David, and he was not the person that held the gun to his head. He said that Ed Zigo was the person that did it.
So he basically gave himself just a bigger role.
Yeah, he over embellished a little bit.
Yeah. Basically, he just said, "That's him." That was kind of his, but that's, I mean, you've made your place in history unintentionally if you're not part of the cult.
Yeah, and he said things like, he said that David Berkowitz said to him, well, what took you so long, essentially, to figure out who he was. David Berkowitz said that he never said that. In the DA tape, he says, he had to remind officers and it's in his book too, he had to remind officers to read Berkowitz's Miranda rights. David is saying that's not accurate. And that he had to, there was something related to evidence related to bullets and possibly in his pockets, not his pockets, but David Berkowitz's pockets, that, an officer didn't find until much later because allegedly they didn't frisk him properly. But David Berkowitz is saying that's inaccurate too. There's a lot of inaccuracies in what has been said by Craig Glassman. And the motivating reasons for that, there could be a lot of motivating reasons for that. Financial attention, job promotions. I mean, let's face it, a lot of people got job promotions based on this case, and he also professionally succeeded, probably in part because of this case.
It was kind of like either right place, right time, or wrong place, wrong time, depending on how you look at it. But, he just gone through a divorce. He's a young guy. Of course, there might be some embellishments in this big, nationwide, international case, really, to have some fame. He works in security, and so that makes sense. And
well, he didn't work in security at the time. He worked previously in security. He went to the University of Miami, I believe. He actually wanted to get into radio communications, according to Shayna.
Interesting.
Yes, and then he didn't go that route. And whenever he came to New York, he put himself through nursing school, and that's what he was doing at the time of David's arrest.
Okay.
He was a nursing school student, and he had just accepted, I believe, an internship or a job at Montefiore Hospital.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my gut feeling is that he wasn't involved in the cult. I kind of have that, in that he basically just took advantage of an opportunity when it presented itself. And, I just think he, again, I don't believe in coincidences really, but it was kind of just a coincidence. That's just my gut feeling. What is your gut feeling, Chris?
I don't want to make an opinion about it. I think that's better addressed by Shayna in her book.
Okay.
And I think until David Berkowitz gives answers further questions about her father, I just don't want to make a guess or make an allegation.
Again, okay.
But I mean, at this point, like I said, the death looks suspect, and that's really all I'm willing to say.
Okay. Well, when is her book coming out? Do we know?
She's still working on it. She had put it aside at one point because she didn't think it was going the right direction, and she wanted to take a few steps back and redecide what trajectory she wanted to take. And I think at this point she knows what additional steps she wants to take with the book. And it's her father's story. It's her story.
Does she have any siblings?
Yes, she does have siblings.
From him? Same father?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Have they spoken out or anything, or is she the only one?
I don't think so. I think she's the only one that's spoken out.
I know I get it. Like, we all want to know where we come from, and we all want to know about our lost family, especially a parent. And so, yeah, so I can't wait. I'll definitely read her book, because I can't imagine what that's like to be in her shoes, to have a parent that's, kind of involved in this big international case, and all this mysterious
Mhm.
conspiracy. You were just a baby, basically, at 4 years old. You're a baby still when that parent was taken from you. So yeah, we will definitely promote her book once it is released, and I will definitely read it myself. So, Chris, is there anything else about this case you want to cover?
Um, Not that I can think of off the top of my head, other than, I mean, she's also had, as we said previously, she's also had problems with Manny Grossman, and I sent you a copy of the previous correspondences, so you could read it,
Yes.
including his online post that he made following her stating she wasn't going to come on his show.
As a podcaster, it's so funny. I never even called my show a podcast until I started working with you guys, with the Son of Sam community. But as somebody who's had a pretty successful YouTube stint, I just want to say this: if Shayna hears this, like, and for Manny too, it's completely normal to have somebody back out of doing a show with you for a multitude of reasons. First of all, as I told you, Chris, like, we don't pay people on YouTube. Am I paying you right now, Chris?
You are not.
Right. We don't pay, we're not backed by a huge production company. And so people are not obligated to come on your channel. They're volunteering their time to come on your channel. And so with that being said, I think you have to be very cognizant of that they are doing you a favor. And I especially know for me, Chris, because I started off my channel, before I even had guests on, I did all the deep dives myself. And so when people like you, or our friend Mike, comes on, who have their own research to present, it's really nice for the host, or someone like me who doesn't know, to kind of be able to take a step back and, like, learn from you guys. And so, with that being said, if Shayna hears this, like, you're always doing you're doing them a favor when you come on their show. So never feel guilty about backing out. And for Manny, because I know he's going to listen to this, like, get your shit together, dude. People cancel all the time. The way you reacted to her canceling on you is not cool at all. And you made a mountain out of a molehill, and it's not okay. And I do not know why Manny is so obsessed with creating women. It's wild how he goes after women. It's gross. It's actually very gross.
You're not the first person that's noticed that. A lot of people have noticed that.
Like, is there some suppressed something going on with him psychologically to make him attack women so harshly? But it's really, it speaks of low integrity, low morals. And I just want to remind Manny, how you behave towards your guests that come on your show is going to dictate whether more guests want to come on your show or not. And the way that you've publicly behaved with this situation is, I would be shocked if anybody comes on your show after that, because it's uncalled for. And I just want Shayna to know, especially since she's about to release her book soon and will probably be wanting to come on podcasts. First of all, Chris, anybody from the Son of Sam community is welcome on my channel. I'm not going to treat you the way Manny has treated people. Do I, Chris? Do I treat people the way Manny treats? I guess you can answer.
You do not. You do not.
But I just want,
and thank you for that.
Well, I would never. If I behave the way Manny behaves, my parents. I'm 43 years old, and I still am fearful of my mother. My mother would unleash all hell on me if I behaved that way publicly. So that is not how I was raised. So, and I just want Shayna to know that I'm sorry this happened to her. Her pulling out of people pull out of doing podcasts for many, many reasons. Sometimes they can't. They think they can do a podcast, but then if they're writing a book or something comes up, they're told by their agent or management, like, to go under an NDA. Totally understandable. Sometimes it's just a time thing. Sometimes they just don't have the energy, or sometimes they just don't feel like it's a good match for them. And all of that is okay. All of that is absolutely okay. You're not contracted with the host of a podcast. And so I want Shayna to understand, I'm sorry that happened to her, but I promise you, Shayna, when you write your book and when you want to start going on shows to promote it, 99% of the people you deal with are absolutely not going to treat you the way Manny did. I just want to put that out there. Manny is a unicorn. He is a very he is his own he's his own worst enemy, and he is his own issue. So obviously there's a lot of I think there's a lot of mental health issues going on.
Right.
So yes.
Unicorns are beautiful. Manny is no unicorn. He's a horse with a dildo attached to the head.
We should make that a t-shirt.
I will say that all day long. I'm sorry if I've offended anybody in the audience, but
no, my audience is tough.
Yeah.
But he's his own, like, that's not how people behave on you. Like, most people do not behave that way on YouTube. Like, he is, if I were a therapist, he would be a very interesting case study. And again, I'm sure that Manny has a lot of mental health issues. Like, I'm almost positive, in my opinion, just because of the way he's behaved when I first heard of Manny, Chris, I thought he was like 21, 22 years old. Just like
you know what? I thought he was younger too, based on his appearance, because he does look fairly young. I mean, you've seen what he looks like,
yeah,
and also his behavior is younger.
It speaks of someone whose frontal lobe is not developed.
Well, I was really shocked whenever I found out his real age. I thought he had to have been in his early 30s, and the only thing I have to say is, he must be dining on like small children to keep himself looking that young.
Should we look into the Epstein emails, see if his name is there?
You go. There you go.
I just, I had never seen his picture, I never watched his show, but just hearing what he was even saying about me or about you guys, my friends and other people, I thought, oh my God, this guy must be like 23, like to behave like this, like that speaks of someone whose frontal lobe is not developed. And then when our friend Mike told me his age, and he's actually older than me, I was flabbergasted, Chris. Like, I was shooketh. I was like, there's no way he is in his 50s. Is it that? I think Mike said he was in his 50s. I'm like, there's no way. And that's my boyfriend's age, and my boyfriend would never behave this way publicly. So, I feel bad. For me, it literally, all of Manny's attacks kind of roll off my back because he's attacking everyone. Basically, it's not personal. I know that because he attacks everyone, literally anyone who has I'm sure, Chris, like somebody could have a different opinion on their favorite food, and Manny would attack them viciously. And so I hope that Shayna recognizes that. I hope people in the Son of Sam community have warned her and told her that this is just a special case. I
believe people amply warned her ahead of time. Yes.
And that might be part of the reason why she might not want to come on your show. Your reputation does, open your career up for you if you are amicable and a pleasant person to work with. And so anyway, long story short, Shayna, girl, if you hear this, like, he's not worth your energy. He called me zombie Paris Hilton or something. What was
he's tried saying that wasn't him, but that it was somebody else that was one of his followers. It's probably one of his sock puppet accounts. I mean, more recently he created a account under, I believe, a YouTube handle under G-Man, and was talking in the third person and referring to himself, and it was his account. And somebody figured it out in the community, and now he's talking in the first person. He's not talking in the third person on the account anymore.
I mean, I don't even have any sock accounts. I just don't have time to have a sock account. And I will say it's kind of pathetic because Manny is never in any of my other videos of my other deep dives. It's only the Son of Sam stuff. So to sit around all day and wait for things to pop up for Son of Sam speaks of someone who has no life, who has nothing outside of this. And it's really sad. And so Shayna, I know as a female, I think I even left a comment on your blog, Chris, about as a female not wanting to be in alone in a room with Manny because of his behavior. And I still stand by that from my own perspective. But just know you're in good company, Shayna. He's ripped all of us, or tried to rip all of us. And guess what? It hasn't stopped us. It hasn't stopped us from continuing to go forward. So it's the insults that he hurls at us is not doing anything, right? It's not hurting our work. And as I told you off air, I wouldn't be I'm shocked he hasn't been sued yet. And so
I'm
it's,
sure that's coming at some
yeah,
point.
me too.
I
Me
don't,
too.
I, at this point, once a person has been warned so many times and they keep engaging in the same behavior, sometimes you don't have any other alternative.
Right, right. And so Shayna girl, I hope that you're not taking it too seriously and understand that he's in my opinion, he's a creep. Um, he's my opinion, he's a megalomaniac. And
Oh,
I laugh whenever you send me things where he says he's the expert in the case. I'm like, says who? Like, like who says that? Like, and so, just there's a lot of people out there that would love to have Shayna on their channel and love to talk to her and give her the respect she deserves, as a human being. Period. Beyond her work, but just as a human being, just having that humanity for people. So, and that's something that Manny Grossman, from my experience, absolutely does not have. He does not have respect for other people. He doesn't hold humanity in his heart for other people. And so, anyway, but with that being said, Chris, I guess after we're done chatting here, for the people watching, just keep listening, and it'll go right into the tapes, the Grossman tapes.
sure. And I'll just tell people if they go into my blog, The Arrest and Lairs, Craig Glassman, Zigo, David Berkowitz, and the Disputed Narrative of August 10th, 1977, you can see what David Berkowitz has to say about the tapes. And I've also linked up prior blogs that I've discussed related to the Craig Glassman. I believe that his book is off the wall. I don't know if I'd really recommend people read it, but you can read it if you're interested. I know
Right.
it is available on the Internet Archive,
Yeah.
and people can pull it up that way. Otherwise, it's out of publication, so you would need to go someplace like eBay in
Right.
order to locate it.
Well, and I think just waiting for Shayna's book would be a better bet, because it seems like she's
Probably.
trying to do her due diligence.
She is, and she's really trying to do the right thing. She realizes that her dad was not perfect,
Right.
and
None
that
of our parents are. So and I respect her for wanting to clear the air, and it's giving her closure. And I think by giving herself closure, by writing this book, it's going to give other people some closure as well. And so, yeah. And I'll put, you guys, as always, all of Chris's blogs are going to be down in the description box below. I was just telling Chris that I figured out yesterday that Medium actually has a way that you can play the blog, which is awesome, because I love being able to listen to like podcasts. So I'm now listening to all of Chris's blogs. That's what's great about Medium, is that they have that option for you too. For my I know I have a lot of people in my community who commute to work and are always looking for things to listen to in the car ride. So that's something you can actually do with Chris's blog. You can listen to her blogs as you're driving to work. So
yeah, you can figure that out if you look under the title of the blog and you go over where you see the little hand claps and you move over the line. You'll see a little listen button, and you just can click on it. But I believe you have to have a membership for that.
it's super cheap. I bought a membership. It's like $50 for a whole year.
Yeah.
Less than $10 a month, you guys, and I just paid up front for it. So yeah, I'm going to come to the page so you guys can see, for those who are watching. It's this right here.
It's also good, if any of you have your own business as well, because it's a good way to advertise for your business.
Yep.
It's also a good way to build a writing portfolio. I do not monetize off the blog. I don't plan on monetizing off of it.
Well, I will say to you guys, something that helps as well, because we know you can give, I actually need to give applause here. I realize I usually give the applause, which is kind of like the like button for those of us on YouTube, but you can also leave comments. I've left a comment here for Chris, and that will help I'm going to like his too. That will help the algorithm promote her blogs out more, just like you help us promote things here on Esoteric Atlanta and your other content creators here. For us, you guys, if you want to help promote this episode, what you can do is you can obviously like this episode. You can leave a comment. Comments are great. Even the nasty ones that Manny leaves, they're great because they help, even nasty comments help push it out into the algorithm. So if you don't know what to leave, as I always suggest, you can just leave us your country flag. Let us know where you're watching from.
I will say this about Medium. If you want to like my blog, that's fine. If you want to make a comment, that's fine. I don't care one way or the other. I personally feel that Medium algorithms my material fairly well, and they do it with others. Some people have not heard of them, but they are one of the largest blogs in the world.
Right. Yeah.
And the person that started it is the same person that started Twitter.
Yes.
And it has its pluses and minuses. It's not perfect, but they algorithm very well. And the White House used it at one point. It's a very well-known blogging source.
Well respected.
Yes.
Well, and that, and I've actually thought about opening up a media account, kind of how I use a Medium account, kind of how I use my Substack, because YouTube's algorithm are terrible sometimes, and my channel does get shadow banned. And so for us here on YouTube, you guys, you can like this video, you can also dislike this video, and it will help the algorithms. You can leave us a comment, let us know where you're watching from, and if you can also hype the video, which you have to do from your cell phone. To hype, you go to the comment section, you'll see on your cell phone, you'll see 3 little dots. You slide the comments to the side and it will say, do you want to hype this video? And you can hype, and that will help you as a viewer push out videos like this one that you want to watch out into the algorithm. You can also go to Rumble for our backup account. That's where I put a lot of stuff that is too potent for this particular platform. So please make sure that you are subscribed there as well. I'm also considering putting my show up on Spotify. So I know a lot of YouTubers are doing that now because of all the politics going on with YouTube. So if that's something that you would be interested in, let me know down below if you'd be interested in Esoteric Atlanta on Spotify. There would be no visual image. It would just be podcast. It would just be our voices. But let me know, you guys. And Chris, is there anywhere else besides Medium that our friends can find you?
I do have an account on Instagram.
Okay,
and that's where it ends. I'm not a real huge fan of social media. I probably should engage more and try to promote the blog more, but I feel like my blog's doing okay. Manny has tried to make it sound like nobody reads me, and that's not exactly accurate. Medium doesn't publish how many people have accessed or viewed the blog. Like, I sent you some examples of my numbers, and I'm not going to publicly brag about how many people have read specific blogs, but people read my blog. So I wouldn't necessarily believe what Manny Grossman is saying, that nobody reads me.
Everybody, listen, you have really good numbers on your blog. You sent me the numbers, and the only person, Manny always does that. He always makes up some excuse as to why somebody's doing better than him. And it's just lies. It's not true. It's all lies. So, your blogs are amazing, and especially listening to it out loud now, like the way you've written it is so easy to follow, even for the audio. And so, Manny can just suck it, because people are doing better than him, and people actually have a life and have friends. And because I consider you a friend, Chris, like, it must not float on your little island with no friends and no one really liking you because you're mean. Like, you're mean. And that's
I appreciate you saying that you're able to follow my blogs, because I took a lot of classes in technical writing in college, and I tried to make it more easy to follow for that reason. But at the same time, I feel like I struggle sometimes with the content maybe being too dry, and I've tried to change that here and there, because whenever I was first writing, I felt like it came across as too technically writing oriented.
Oh no, girl, it's very pleasurable to read. I'm an avid reader, and so I go through books like crazy, and so your blogs are very easy to read. So absolutely. Well, with that being said, Chris, if you guys will hold on for one moment, we're going to play a little commercial from our sponsors, and then it's going to get right into the DA tapes with Craig Glassman. So thank you, Chris, for coming on and sharing this today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Welcome back to Fusion Body Studio. Today I am so excited to share two brand new workouts that were filmed in one of my favorite places in the entire world, Pawleys Island, South Carolina. If you've been with me for a while, you know that Pawleys Island isn't just another filming location for me. It's a place filled with memories, history, mystery, and some of the happiest moments of my childhood. Growing up, I spent countless summers with my family here in Pawleys Island, surrounded by the salt air, the sound of the ocean, and the laid-back charm that makes Pawleys Island unlike anywhere else in the world. This is the home of the famous rope hammocks that have become a symbol of the low country lifestyle. It's home to stories of the legendary Gray Man, the mysterious ghost said to appear before major hurricanes. It's home to the beautiful Adelaide Castle with its fascinating history and lingering mysteries. You'll see the iconic houses perched on stilts, designed to weather coastal storms, and you'll experience the natural beauty and the unique culture that have made Pawleys Island a beloved destination for generations. Most importantly, this is my family's hometown, and that makes this place special in my heart, and I couldn't think of a better backdrop for these two new Fusion Body Studio workouts. The first class is a brand new 45-minute express bar fusion workout, and I absolutely love this one because I was not alone for the filming. Joining me is senior yoga teacher Todd Roderick, my amazing 12-year-old niece Jacqueline, and my brother-in-law Stephen. Now, Stephen brings something very unique to this workout. He is an ultra marathon runner. For those who may not know, the ultra marathon runners go beyond the traditional 26.2 mile marathon distance. Many races are 50 kilometers, 50 miles, 100 miles, or even longer. These athletes train for incredible endurance, spending countless hours on the road and trails. One of the reasons I wanted Stephen in this class is because bar training offers tremendous benefit for long-distance runners. Bar helps strengthen the stabilizing muscles around the hips, knees, ankles, and core. It improves balance, posture, muscular endurance, and joint stability while helping correct muscle imbalance that can develop from repeated running. Stronger glutes, stronger hips, and better alignment can contribute to more efficient movement and potentially reduce the risk of overused injuries. Whether you're a runner, a walker, a yogi, or simply someone looking to improve overall strength and mobility, bar can be an incredible complement to your existing fitness routine. The best part is that this class is truly designed for all levels. Whether you're brand new to bar or you've been practicing for years, you'll find the options that work for your body in this class. For equipment, you'll need a stable surface such as a chair, countertop, wall table, or ballet bar. You may also choose to use light hand weights and a small exercise ball, but both are completely optional. Expect a fun, supportive workout filled with strengthening movements, balance challenges, and plenty of opportunities to improve posture, flexibility, and overall body awareness. The second new release is a 40-minute cardio flush workout designed to get you moving, sweating, and feeling energized. This class is all about creating circulation throughout the body and helping you work up a healthy sweat. While our bodies naturally detox through organs like the liver and the kidneys, movement and sweating can support overall wellness by encouraging circulation and helping you feel refreshed and revitalized. This workout combines low-impact cardio with full-body conditioning to elevate your heart rate while remaining accessible to a wide range of fitness levels. If you'd like an additional challenge, you can add a pair of light dumbbells for extra resistance, but they are completely optional. You'll still get an excellent workout just using your body weight. This class is the perfect class for those days when you want to boost your energy, get your blood flowing, and leave feeling accomplished without spending hours exercising. And if you've been thinking about joining Fusion Body Studio, now is the perfect time. Use code BRYCE20 at checkout and receive 20% off your first 6 months of tuition. We also offer a 7-day free trial, giving you an entire week to explore our classes, meet our instructors, and make sure Fusion Body Studio is the right fit for you before making a commitment. From hundreds of classes ranging from bar and strength training to yoga, cardio, mobility, and beginner programs, and a wellness education, there's truly something for everyone regardless of age, experience level, and fitness background. While you're connecting with us, don't forget to check out our brand new YouTube channel, where we'll be sharing inspiring interviews, practical wellness tips, educational content, and deep dives into health, movement, spirituality, and personal growth. And be sure to follow us on Instagram for the latest updates, behind the scenes contents, announcements, and notifications whenever a new workout and video drops. Together, these 2 brand new workouts capture everything I love about Fusion Body Studio. Movement that meets you where you are, workouts that are effective and accessible, and the opportunity to connect mind, body, and spirit while enjoying some of the most beautiful scenery in the country. I hope you'll join us on Pawleys Island for both of these new classes. Whether you're strengthening and toning with our Express Bar Fusion workout or sweating it out with our Cardio Flesh class, I think you're going to feel the magic of this special place while giving your body exactly what it needs. Thank you for being a part of the Fusion Body Studio family. I can't wait for you to experience these new workouts, and I'll see you on the mat and on the beautiful shores of Pawleys Island, South Carolina.
In 79, we were in the office of the Queens District Attorney's Office. The time is 3:20. We're here for an interview of Craig Glassman. My name is Herbert Leifer, Assistant District Attorney. Mike, want to give your name?
Michael Armiento.
Craig?
Okay, Craig Glassman.
And could you put your address and your date of birth on it, please?
42 Pine Street, Yonkers, New York, apartment 6E, May 11th, 1948.
Okay. Craig, we've asked you to come here to our office for purpose of just filling in some information that we require with regard to any involvement that you may have had with David Berkowitz as his neighbor, friend, if it existed, or in any other relationships you had. I do know that you received certain communications from him, and I'd like you to start from the beginning when you first moved into Pine Street, and I believe it was 35 Pine Street at that time.
Correct.
And, well, give us an approximate date when you moved in, if you recall, and continue from there.
That's no problem. All right, it was March 15th, 1977. My wife and I had separated. We were going to be getting a divorce. So I moved out of the apartment, and it just so happened that it was convenient I was in nursing school at the time. It was convenient, so I happened to pick 35 Pine Street. The apartment was nice. It overlooked the Hudson. You know, the rent was all right. So I moved in. From that point on, I really didn't get to know any of the neighbors in the building. And, I just kept to myself because I was busy in school, going back and forth, studying and so on, seeing my own friends. I am a member of the Westchester County Sheriff's Department, the Emergency Force Division. At that time, I was just a deputy. And during that time, there was an incident one night, it was in May, where I had played my television too loud. And I got a phone call. This was about 1 o'clock in the morning. And the phone call, the person on the other end said, "Shut that fucking television off." Okay. And
You're supposed to send some detectives over to the bank?
Yes.
They will be here tomorrow. Sorry.
At that time, I felt pretty bad. I guess I thought, my television was too loud, and one of the neighbors, he didn't even give me a chance to say, I'm sorry or whatever. So I just really didn't think of anything of it.
What
because-
year was that?
Okay, this was 77. It was like 3 months after I moved into the apartment. And, in retrospect, coming to the present and going back, it could only have been David Berkowitz because the neighbors who lived below me were Puerto Rican, the 2 or 3 neighbors around me were black, and the person whose voice was on there was white. It was obvious. And then, plus when I heard Berkowitz's voice for the first time after we had arrested him, it kind of, came together.
Now, you were in apartment, what?
6E, I lived directly below him.
And David was 70.
70, just above me. All right, the apartments were connected by a fire escape. Okay, we overlooked the Hudson River side of the building. That's, west towards New Jersey.
But did you have a listed or unlisted phone at that time?
At that time, if you would have looked in the phone book, my number would have been listed for 130-68 Glenwood Avenue, which is about a block and a half away. Okay, so...
When you moved, you took the same number with you?
No. My wife kept that number.
Right.
And I got a new number, which was in information. I mean, if you called information, they could give you that number.
But it wasn't an unlisted number that he could not have found unless he had some source?
No. If he would have looked in the phone book, he would have had to call my wife's house. If he would have called information, he would have got my number from information. That's the only way he could have gotten it, because very few people at that time, like that I came in contact with, knew that I was separated from my wife, living away in another place. So, there were several people, like the chief of my department, who knew my phone number, and several other people. So, that kind of narrowed it down. So at that point, that was it until June. I had no contact. I've never, all the times that I lived in that building, I never saw David Berkowitz, whether we were in the hall, walking on the stairway, or I was in the garage. We never had contact, at least on a conscious level. I never recognized him because I really never spoke to any of the neighbors. I really didn't, converse really with anybody in the building.
You had an automobile at that time?
Yes.
Did you park it in the building or in a parking lot next to the building?
Parked in the indoor garage, the upper level indoor garage.
And what kind of car did you have at that time?
At that time was a 1972 gold Pontiac Le Mans, 975 RYJ.
Now, was Berkowitz's car in that garage also, or was that parked outside?
Again, I can only tell you what happened after he was arrested from Yonkers PD telling me that he parked on the street. Okay, because he said Officer Chamber of Yonkers PD told me at times he parked like in the back lot below where we lived, down below, because there's an outdoor parking lot.
Right, I've seen that.
But he mainly parked on the street because you have to pay for the outdoor spaces as well as the indoor spaces. So
now, from the time of that phone call, you had no other connection, no other involvement until...
I was busy with nursing school and the sheriff's department.
Okay. And then the next time something happened?
Hold on.
June.
Okay.
Go ahead, turn it off for a second so we can... I'll continue. Now, you're saying, Craig, that after the phone call, what happened?
Okay, I was, again, like I said before, I was busy with my nursing responsibilities and my duties with the sheriff's department. And at that time, to give a little background, I was having problems with my own department because of, I guess, jealousy, seeing that I had been promoted within the short period of time that I've been with the sheriff's department. It was like 2 years, and I was promoted to corporal. And I had some people who were angry with me over one incident, which kind of lays the groundwork for the reasoning behind later on. So I received a letter on June 13th from, someone unknown. It was a letter threatening my life, saying, "We will murder you, we will kill you." I haven't made copies of it, so I'll give you a copy. But this is like a photocopy of it. The sheriff's department, before they realized that he sprayed it, didn't take a picture of it, and it started to run. So that was like, the best copy, but I have a copy, like
What do you mean sprayed? What happened?
for prints.
Oh, I see.
And he didn't, I don't know, I guess his problem, he didn't photograph it first and then spray, because
I see.
now I've seen the letter since and it's half burned away. The silver nitrate spray.
Do you know who was the author of this? Did you find out?
At that time, no. I immediately called the undersheriff of our department, Mr. Jack O'Brien, and I spoke to him about it. he asked me, the first thing he asked me, have you had any trouble with your neighbors? I said, hell, I don't even know my neighbors. So he said, well, then, what about other places? You have any enemies? And then I related the incident that went on at the sheriff's department. And he said, well, possibly could be that. So why don't you just let it go? Maybe it's just one isolated letter that somebody was letting off some steam. Let it go. Don't say anything to anybody. This way, maybe, they'll either come forward, seeing that they didn't get a response out of you, and then, you can see that way. I said, okay, fine. So I let it go. But again, this whole period of time, I never met Berkowitz. I never saw him.
Were any prints taken?
They didn't find any prints on the letter. None that were usable anyway. So within the next month, I received a second letter, which I have a copy for you here. And this even, within our framework, made it our theory more viable, because if you notice, it says my superior, Sergeant Glassman. At the time I was a corporal, so we felt, and there's so many terms in there, captain, general, that this person was within our own department. It was.
Do you recall the dates that you received either of these letters?
Yeah, June 13th.
This was the first
Oh
one.
wait, I'm sorry, June 7th. And July 14th.
Quincy's
That's the second letter.
Yeah.
And that was 1977. Okay.
Who's this?
Okay, so that kind of cemented it, and the undersheriff said, well, let me speak to Chief DiOrio, who's head of Bureau of Criminal Investigation for our department, and we'll open the case on this, and they wanted me to get all the handwritings of all the people in our own department, which I did, and 3 people's handwriting came pretty close, too, believe it or not. And at that time, they were investigating it at that angle, that it was somebody within our own department. So, at that time, the investigation continued. Again, no, I knew nothing about my upstairs neighbor, anything like that. And it came around to the beginning of August. Less than a month later, and I graduated nursing school on a Friday night, which was August 5th. My father had flown up from Miami. He stayed overnight with me in my apartment. And that next morning, about 7:30, approximately 7:30, I was awakened. I was laying on the couch closer to the door. My father was asleep on the bed, and I heard a crackling and popping noise. I could see around the door frame there was a fire. So at that time I woke my father up, called the fire department. At that time I thought the building was on fire.
Hold on a second.
So at that point I heard people outside, and they said, don't come out. And I said, I'm not going to come out.
Yeah,
So they started to douse the fire with water from outside. And they said, you're not going to believe this, but the fire's only in front of your door.
Listen,
So I was kind of surprised to take it back.
Is there any way we can see it tonight?
Under this auspice, the Yonkers Police Department, when the fire department showed up, they called for an arson investigator immediately. And normal procedures to have a team of uniformed officers come up and interview, the people.
Do you have an approximate date that happened?
That was August 6th.
If we can work it up one of 2 ways, whichever.
Fire 7:30 in the morning.
You can
Okay.
come to our office.
So at that time,
5 to 6.
Lieutenant Starkey of the fire department responded, as the arson investigator. And in the fire, within they found that it was a flammable liquid that they piled garbage, bags, cardboard, and they had placed 22 caliber bullets in the fire, because you could see on the door they expended. You could hear popping. The door, it was metal, and only the viewer box on it, you looked at it, popped off.
Interview.
So at that time, the uniformed officers came up,
We're not associated with the New York City Police Department at all.
he came in and he asked the other people to leave, and he kind of closed the door, and he said, can you tell me, have you ever received any threatening letters from anyone? And I said, well, I have. I've received 2, and I showed him who I was and who I was with, and I said, we have it under investigation at this time. And he said, well, would you allow me to see one of the letters? And I said, well, I guess so. I guess it would be all right. At that time, the sheriff's department had already assigned an investigator who was working on it, and they were just sending stuff to the state police for signature checks, things like that. So Chamberlain, I showed Officer Chamberlain of Yonkers PD the second letter, which I
see you.
gave you there. And the minute he saw Carr's name, he said,
Is there
oh my
any
God, this is the guy. And I said, what do you mean, this is the guy? He said, you're not going to believe this, but the guy who we think set the fire outside your door and sent you this letter is the guy who lives right above you. His name is David Berkowitz. And he wrote it down on a piece of paper, his apartment number, his age, his date of birth, his, height, weight, car, license plate number. And he said,
give me a call.
this guy, Sam Carr, within this letter, lives right down the hill from him.
Yeah.
And his daughter is a dispatcher at Yonkers PD.
Okay, take the bell.
And if you want to talk to her and find out what's going on with them, he gave me her name and her number and told me to call her.
On the Venmo, I get off.
So he said, you're not going to believe this, but we feel that this guy might be the son of Sam. And I said, really? And he said, yep. And
when you reached the first, when you reached the second one,
I was, really surprised.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't believe it, especially living right above me like
and
that.
you will have passed that big building, the white building.
After, David called the detectives to come in,
But when you
he
get
was
to
handling
Second Lake,
Carr's
right,
case.
You go down.
And he brought the letters
Way down, and you see
Supposedly somebody had sent Carr. And we put them together, and even though none of us were handwriting experts, you could pretty well see that the letters are written by the same person.
Then you see a door, you go through it, and you ask the guard.
They said, well, get the person who's in charge of your investigation to contact us. Because at that time, Yonkers knew nothing about my goings-on because we thought it was within the department. I was told by the undersheriff not to notify Yonkers PD of the threatening letter because he felt it was an internal problem. So Yonkers wasn't notified. That's why they weren't notified. And at that time, that's when Yonkers and the sheriff's department got together.
Okay.
Now, New York City was never notified of this.
Right. Let me know
because Chamberlain said he had called the 109th precinct or something, was in touch with detectives out there. So after they scooped up all the crap outside and put it in barrels and whatever they were going to do with it, whether they were going to use it as evidence or what, I don't know, because they never had prosecuted the case, even though they had direct evidence that Berkowitz had done this. Still, again, at that time, none of the letters were said they were from David Berkowitz, and definitely written by David Berkowitz. This was afterwards that New York City, the handwriting analysts had said that they were all Berkowitz's letters. So at that point, everybody all left, and my department came. They told me, well, as a matter of fact, they went up to check Berkowitz's department to see if he was home, and he was not home. And matter of fact, Officer Chamberlain told me before he left, they checked the neighborhood to see if his car was there, and it was not there at that time. So my department came, he checked through everything. We knocked on his door later on, still there was nobody home in Berkowitz's apartment. And you could not see in from the fire escape because he had nicely put up a blanket on the window so you could not see in. So we checked the roof for a weapon. I had told him what Yonkers had told me about him possibly being a suspect in the son of Sam. And we checked the roof all over to see maybe there'd be a weapon. Maybe that's where he hid the weapon. Maybe he never kept it in his apartment. He hid it in a loose brick in the elevator shaft or whatever. We found nothing. We went down, we checked my car to see if maybe he rigged something in my car. And that was clean. Then my investigator, David Feliciano, the sheriff's department, told me it's best maybe if you move out to another apartment for the time being until we get this whole thing cleared up. Because now the guy means business. If he's going to try and burn you out, he's certainly going to, possibly try and do something else. So, in no way did I ever realize, what did I do with this guy, to do it, other than, that one time with the live television set. So, I left that night, and my father was still there. He was stunned by this because I never told him about the threatening letters. So, we went to my uncle's house at 96th Street here in the city, and we had dinner, and we got home about 9 o'clock. And I decided to stop by the apartment to get my service revolver and some other things that I'd need for the next day. Because I was going to move into my wife's apartment, because she was away for that weekend. And then I would take care of the animals for her and so on. And so I went to my apartment. I could hear Berkowitz walking around when I was there. But they told me not to take any action against him. Because I was pretty angry. I wanted to see what this guy looked like. And I wanted to go up there and knock on his door and let him know that now I knew what was going on. But they said not to do that. So I got my stuff. We went downstairs. Before we left the building, I said, let me stop and get my mail, because we never got the mail. When I got downstairs to the mailbox, I started to take the letters out, and there were 2 more letters from. Then at that time, then I realized it was David Berkowitz, and these were the 2 letters, which again I have copies of, that he had sent. And the minute, like, I didn't open the letters, I immediately called my department. I called Yonkers, and they said, well, we can't do anything. Detective Lorenzo is out of town. He won't be back till tomorrow night. I called my department. They said, well, you know that our fingerprint unit is open. You have to come in Monday morning. This was Saturday night. I said, all right, well, I'll put it in plastic bags and, save it. Well, I held the letter up to the light. The one thing that I could see when I looked through says, I know, Master, I am doomed, but do not think that I will not tell the authorities of you. True, I am the killer. But Craig, the killings are your commands. And from that point on, I felt that he was the son of Sam. And when I went in on Monday to bring the letters in with me, I told the investigator, and he told me at that time, well, we checked Berkowitz out, and we checked his background out. He's not the guy.
And you got the copies of those letters?
Yeah.
Okay, and the dates on these 2 letters were what?
Okay, that was August. Well, they were mailed on the 4th, and I got them on the 6th.
August 6th, 1977, for both of them.
Right, because in the second, in the first, if you see in one of the letters, it says Craig, you'll be punished. In other words, I guess the fire was the punishment or whatever. I guess, I don't know.
Okay.
All right, so again, at that time, that's in my mind, it kind of related that he was, with seeing that True I Am the Killer, he was the son of Sam. Then at that time, I went and slept at my wife's apartment. And the next day, my father was flying back to Miami. We were going out to breakfast. We came home. He didn't want me to drive him to the airport. So I took him over to the limousine on Central Avenue to go to the airport. So at that time, I came back to the apartment. As I came back, I saw David Berkowitz's car parked on North Broadway, which is like the main thoroughfare that runs between through Yonkers and so on.
How'd you know it was his car?
Okay, because like I told you, Officer Chamberlain had given me the description of his car, his license plate number. So I immediately recognized it. So I parked my car in the parking lot. And this is like right on the corner of where my wife lived, because it was like a whole block unit of row houses here. So I took the dog for a walk. My wife and I had a dog, and I took the dog out for a walk to just look innocent about it. And as I looked into the car, on the passenger side in the front, there was like a yellow notepad about this size, and there was like 4 lines of writing in the first 4 lines. I can't remember what it said, but the only thing I remember is the word "you," and the way he makes his "yous" are very distinctive. And I couldn't believe it. So I went back to the apartment. I immediately called up the investigator from my department. And I said, I can believe this. He's got a notepad right on the floor of his car. And the writings are similar. I mean, if you get a handwriting analyst to check it, it's going to be it. He says, well, there's nothing we can do about it. He says, if we pull him in, he's going to say that somebody put the notepad in his car and then it had nothing to do with him. So, more frustration. So, that night, when I was working for the Sheriff's Department that particular day, that night we got back to headquarters, we ran a license plate check on Berkowitz, on his license. I don't know if you probably have a copy of this. Right. And at that point, he had the failure to answer a summons in the beginning of July, which means he was driving with a suspended license, and if they wanted to pick him up for questioning, that was the perfect thing to do it with. But again, they did nothing. We presented this, and they did nothing about it.
Hey, what's up?
So,
Okay.
at that time, that night, we went up to Berkowitz's apartment because we stopped back at my apartment so I could get some more clean clothes. So I started work, the first day of work at Montefiore Hospital on Monday. That's the 8th of August. So when we went in there, we could hear Berkowitz upstairs. And we went up to his apartment door, but we didn't take any action. We just listened. He was talking. Matter of fact, I could hear him. He was talking to himself. I know he was talking to himself, but I heard him talking. It wasn't a radio. It wasn't a television. It was, a voice. And
That's what?
we just, left
What was that?
after that. We didn't take any action. There were
Yeah,
4
we
of
got
us. So the next day, I brought my letters up to the Sheriff's Department. These 2 letters I showed you. They dusted them for
I
prints.
was trying to see.
And at that time, I don't think they got any prints
It
off
was his mother.
of either of them.
His mother. Yeah.
So,
And, but the vet.
at that time, I had the conversation about, yes, this must be him, and he said, no, it's not, we have somebody else who fits him criminally and looks like a
That
composite,
references to
but he never told me who that, who that particular
Hold on.
person was. So at that time, they said, well, we'll cross-reference these letters, because I spoke to Detective Lorenzo, in Yonkers, we'll cross-reference these to the FBI, so they can check.
Yeah, Pontiac.
So that kind of ended it there, and I got permission from the sheriff to check Berkowitz, to just keep an eye on him, follow his movements, his car, what was going on.
No.
So I would check it every day, see where his car was. On Monday night, his car was parked like maybe 100 feet away from the building itself on Pine Street, south on Pine Street. And in the car, on the front floor, was like a whole bunch of magazines and some papers, and he had a big blue jacket on the back seat, a duffel bag that was flat on the seat, and a pair of jeans, I believe. And again, he was home that night. I could hear him walking around. I mean, it was like you could hear him turn on and off the light switch. It was, that evident. So again, I was still staying at my wife's apartment. Went back up there. My wife said, "Get out." She said, "If this guy's after you, he's going to come after you up here, and then you're going to get me involved in this whole thing." So that on Tuesday, I had to go back to my apartment.
So they
So
dropped him
on
there.
Tuesday again, I came back to my apartment and I went out and checked Berkowitz's car. It was parked like a little closer to the building this time, except there were no jeans, no jacket. There were just a couple of magazines on the floor, and that was
Because that's when they found out that he was in the Army.
So again, there was really no movement on his part, and I think he was home that night.
Yeah, I know, the records reflect that he...
Wednesday morning,
That he resigned in 7th
I was
grade.
on my way to work. I left the house at 7:25 in the morning.
Where he was.
Went down Pine Street, got out to North Broadway, and I decided, well, I'll take a shortcut, go over High Street down Park Avenue to get on Ashburton Avenue. And as I did such, as I got across Palisades Avenue, went to High Street, there was the car, Berkowitz's car. Again, from the description and license
But he
plate,
was definitely...
I could see it was his, so I slowly came up by it, and as I drove by, this was the first time I got my look at Berkowitz. He was sitting there kind of like leaning across the front seat towards the passenger side. And as I started to drive by, he kind of like leaned over like this and just watched me as I went by. So I said, wow, the guy's going to probably start tailing me. So I watched my rearview mirror most of the way down to the Bronx, to the hospital. And I get, he didn't tail me, at least I didn't see him tail me. So I really thought nothing about it the rest of the day. When I came home that night, I didn't know at that time that New York City had him staked out. They'd been up to Yonkers on Tuesday. They related all my stories to Strano and the rest of them. And so I came home. I didn't even notice what was going on. I just saw some people standing by a fence. And I guess they'd been out there all day and they were watching what was going on. So I drove past the front of the building. I saw Berkowitz's car parked like just like north of the building, maybe 75 to 100 feet north of the building. So I decided, well, I'll go out. It was drizzling, so I'll go out later on. I'll check, see what's going on with the car. So I went up to the apartment. I went to sleep for a while. I got a phone call from my sister's father-in-law. Kept me on the phone for about an hour and a half. So about 7:30, I went down to do my laundry.
Could be people in person.
And about 8 o'clock, I switched over for my clothes from the washer to the dryer. I decided, well, I looked out the door and it wasn't raining anymore, it was drizzling. So I went upstairs. And I went outside, I looked at Berkowitz's car. On the front seat, on the passenger side on the floor, was like a white envelope,
probably for the same reason.
and there was a letter in it. I think it was on a yellow sheet of paper or something. On the back seat, there was a duffel bag, and you could see a gun butt. The outline of a gun butt.
A rifle or a pistol?
No, gun butt. Some type of rifle, shotgun, rifle, whatever. Which ended up being like an automatic weapon, a semi-automatic weapon. So I started to walk away from the car. I was going to go upstairs and call my department and see if I could get somebody over there and retail them. So as I started to walk back to the building, I heard a lot of running. So immediately I knew that somebody had staked out. So as I got to the front of the building, 35 Pine Street, I was surrounded by plainclothes officers. At that time, they didn't identify themselves as New York City police officers. They surrounded me, and as a matter of fact, it was Ed Zigo who said to me, he says, "Are you David Berkowitz?"
Yeah.
And I looked at him, I laughed, and I said, "No," and I took my identification out of my pocket, and I showed him my shield and my identification. And, he said, "Why were you looking in the car?" And he said,
Okay, good.
"Wait a minute," and he had seen, there was a Yonkers patrol car, the guy lives in the building, parked his car, and he went out to dinner. He said, "Call up Yonkers PD and tell them to get that car the fuck the hell out of here." He said, "We don't want to spook them." So one of the guys left, and I guess they made a phone call, and then he said, "Well, let's go walk down the end of the block on the hill so nobody will see us and we can talk." So then we all walked down around, and I explained my situation to them, but at no time did they ever tell me they were from New York City.
And
I kept thinking that it was Yonkers that was doing
gave me
it.
the name of Michael.
So at that time, Zigo, and 5 or 6 other whoever, at that time, like I said, the other officers left. They said they were going to get the warrants. That time they told me not to go near Berkowitz or his apartment or his car. So I said, "Well, I'm doing my laundry. I don't care. You can get and do what you want." So I went back, and as I went back down to the laundry room to take my laundry out, I thought to myself, they had men only on the roof and sitting out in the car on Pine Street, and there were like 4 or 5 different ways. If Berkowitz found out they were staking him out, he could have left the building, and they would have never even known he was going. Matter of fact, they even asked me if he was in his apartment at the time, which he was. And at that time, I went back upstairs, and sitting in the unmarked car outside was Jardella and Palatico. And I told Jardella about the situation. He said, "Well, show me." I took him into the building, and I showed him the 3 or 4 different exits that Berkowitz could have taken. They would never seen him. He says, "All right," he says, "do me a favor. You stake it out for me right now, and let me see if I can get more manpower down here." I said, "All right, no problem. I have my gun with me." Go ahead. So he left. About 10, 15 minutes later, came back and said, "Listen, I spoke to him," and he said, we don't need, this area staked out. We feel that he's a loner. He doesn't know what's going on. He's on the riverside. We're out here. We don't think he's, going to be aware of what's going on." I said, "Okay, it's fine with me." He said, "Well, would you do me a favor?" They asked me, "Would you please come up and sit with us?" He said, "You've seen what Berkowitz looked like. We don't know what he looks like. Would you come up and sit with us, in the car?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, but I have to get clearance from my department." And he says, no problem." He says, "But do me a favor. Just don't tell him what it's about, and don't ask anybody else to come down." So I said, "Okay, fine." So I went upstairs, I called the captain of my department, got the clearance, told us to make sure they had backup. And I said, "Yeah, they got backup." So at that point, I went downstairs. I could hear Berkowitz. He was still in his apartment. This was about 8:30 that I went downstairs to sit in the unmarked car.
Okay, but see, the pump house that I thought you were talking about, you're talking about another pump house. And the pump house, see where all those crosses were in that cave, if you will.
Right, that is under the artificial reflecting pool at Untermeyer's. That's where our people took pictures.
Under the artificial reflecting pool.
Right. There's a pool in Untermeyer's Park that's raised up like. Apparently, the pool is level with... Turn the tape over, the time is now 4 o'clock.
Right, so at that point I went downstairs and I sat in the unmarked car. It was a blue Buick, I believe. Falatico was sitting in the front seat passenger side. Jardella was sitting in the passenger side rear. They had me get in on the driver's side rear.
When I spoke to Mrs. Davis.
At that time it was dark. The street lights were on. The lights in front of the building were on, but still it was very dimly lit
I
street.
would have went to go myself.
So what they were expecting, I guess, is they were parked. There were 2 vans in front of the unmarked car, and then came Berkowitz's car. At about 9:15, a subject came out of the building, and they, at that time, we had been bullshitting about, different things about, just shooting the breeze. And somebody came out and said, "Is this him?" And he started to walk out into the street and come down the street. When he got into the light, he said, "No, the kid was in the building with some girl." And he just kept continuing walking up the street and left. So at that time, I heard a call come over their radio, something about Brooklyn. And at that time I said, you're from New York City? He says, yeah, didn't you know that? I said, no, you guys, nobody ever said anything to me that you're from New York City.
Yeah.
And I said, that must mean you're here on the Son of Sam. Are you going to try to arrest me on the Son of Sam?
Okay.
I said, yeah, and he went into this whole big thing. So, all right. So about half an hour passes and another subject comes out of the building. This time, the person had something in their hand. They crossed over immediately. Once they came out of the building, they crossed over into the street. They were not in the view of Filatico and Giardello. They were in my view. As he came up the street, I could see in his I believe it was his left hand, he had a bag, and that was what contained the gun. But at that point, he couldn't see. You know, we were a good 50 feet away. So he came. He opened his car door. As he got into the car, they asked me, "Is that him?" I said, "Yes, that's him." And I immediately jumped out of the car and drew my gun and ran down to Berkowitz's car and put it to his head. It said, "Freeze, police." And again, now New York City, neither Giardello or Filatico pulled out their shields. I was the only one to pull out my shield at that time. And I commanded Berkowitz to turn off the engine, put his hands on the steering wheel, and then I asked him to get out of the car, open the door slowly. Now Filatico was on my side of the car, like at the back door, because Berkowitz had a 4-door car. Giardello was on the opposite side. When I put the gun to his head, he looked at me, then he looked across, and Giardello had his gun out, facing in the car that way. Filatico never had his gun out. He had his hand in his pocket. So Berkowitz looked back at me, then I gave him the commands to open the door slowly, get out, turn around, put his hands on the car. That time, Giardello walked around from the passenger side, and they said, "Glassman, you hold the gun on, and we'll frisk him." So I held the gun on him, and Filatico frisked his left side, Giardello frisked his right side, and then Filatico cuffed him. At that time, we turned around, and Giardello, I guess, was a detective sergeant at the time in charge of the unit. So he said, "All right, John, you take Berkowitz down to PD, you drive the car," and Charlie Higgins and John Longo were up on the roof. And they came down, and he told Charlie Higgins to ride in the back with Berkowitz. And then they said, "We don't know how to get to Yonkers PD." So they said, "Well, Glassman, you know how to get there?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And he said, "All right, you ride with him." And I rode in the front seat. Filatico drove, but Higgins was in the back with Berkowitz. So we left Pine Street, and as we got in the car, Higgins started to ask Berkowitz a question. I told Higgins, I said, "Don't say a word to him, let's read him his rights first." So he said, "All right," and Higgins read him his rights. Berkowitz, answered affirmative to each one of them. At that time, I started asking Berkowitz questions about the letters that I'd received. I used like the names he had signed, your brothers and sisters, Demdishmutz, which was one that was very, very cute. When I had mentioned Demdishmutz to him, he gave me like a cold, icy stare, and then just turned away and looked out the window. And at that time, Higgins started going through his pockets, and he took out like a bag that had bullets in it, and I think it was like either cellophane or plastic bag. And Higgins didn't have his reading glasses with him, so he handed them to me in the front seat and asked me to read the caliber off the bullet. So I took the bullets and I read it was a Smith & Wesson 44 caliber special. So we kind of all stared at him, and he just again turned away and looked out the window. So as we were getting closer to Yonkers PD, as we were ready to pull in, he said to us, and we did not elicit the response, he said, "How did you know I was the son of Sam?" And we just all looked at each other. And at that point, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. There was one point, like when we arrested him and I put the gun to his head, he said, how come you got me? How come it took you so long?" Okay, then to go back to the arrest. Then when we were at Yonkers PD, Filatico started to say to Higgins, "Oh, and he stopped. Higgins said, "Keep quiet." Because I guess they wanted Berkowitz to identify Dowd and Keenan, seeing that all these letters and everything that were written. So as we took him out of the car, Dowd asked us all to kind of walk away. He took Berkowitz to the side by one of the garages there and started to talk to him and asked everybody to just move away so he could talk to him. So maybe 5-10 minutes passed, and he said, all right, he says, why don't you guys go back to the building, wait for the warrants, we're going to take him inside and interrogate him. So at that point, I had to go back with Higgins because Higgins didn't know the way and Flatico was going to stay with him. So I took Higgins back, we went back to the building, we waited, and as we got back there, they were bringing the warrants over. So at that point, we went into the car. I didn't go into the cars, but the New York City people went into the cars, and that's when they found a ski mask, a semi-automatic weapon, other pistols, ammunition, and the .44 caliber gun, of course, was found in there. So from that point, after we went through the car, they said, okay, we'll go up to the apartment. And we all went up to the apartment. At that point, New York City legal officer who was with them said to me, he says, Craig, you can't come into the apartment. There are going to be too many of us in here. So you can stand by the door, but you can't come into the apartment. So I said, all right. So they went into the apartment, and as I got in there, one of them said, did anybody think to bring any paper so we could write down the things we're taking out of here? They didn't bring any paper. So I said, all right, I'll get you some. So I went down to my apartment, brought on paper, and they used that. So at that point, they were going through the different things. They found a diary that he had written. There were a lot of notes written on the wall that I did not see at that time. The only thing that was mentioned to me was the one that was right by the door. There was a note written in pencil right by the front door, and it said, God save us from Craig Glassman. And one of the detectives from New York City had made, he says, I hope you're a religious guy, because it seemed like this guy really hated your guts or something, because he's got things written in here all over about you. So, at that point, Detective Jardella told me, he says, well, why don't you get downstairs and change, because I was wearing short pants and a t-shirt and sneakers. He says, because the press is going to probably be on this whole thing, so why don't you get down and change? He says, well, I'm not up here, meet me down at Yonkers PD. So I went down, changed, and so on, and I went back upstairs. Jardella wasn't there, so I went down to Yonkers PD. When I got there, they tried to kind of shuffle me off, and I got angry and I started screaming, and Keenan came out. He said, listen, he says, I promise you, Craig, you'll get your credit for it, you did a good job, blah, blah, blah. So I said, all right, and I called my chief of my department, who in turn called the undersheriff. The sheriff was out of town at a convention or something. And he said, wait a minute. He says, I want to make sure that you get credit for this. And he came, he picked me up, we went back to Yonkers PD, because I went back to the apartment. And the undersheriff lived on High Street, not that far away. And we got back down. They were just ready to take Berkowitz out and take him back to New York City. And at that point, the undersheriff told him, stop, because I don't want you taking him anywhere. And they said, well, who the hell are you? He said, well, I happen to be the undersheriff of this county, and I want everybody to turn around and go right back in there. So he took out his badge, showed everybody all back in. So he had him bring out the arrest report. He showed him the arrest report, except when they showed him the arrest report, he went like this. And he said, see, right down here, Flatico, Jardella, and Glassman. Except that all that said was that was a weapons charge that he was arrested on in Yonkers. What they intended to do was book him in Brooklyn for the Son of Sam murders, and that would have cut everybody else out, except for Flatico. Because again, from what I understand, there were a lot of feelings hurt, a lot of people were angry, a lot of divorces, heart attacks over this whole thing. So at that point, they took Berkowitz away, and that was up to that point, that was my involvement directly with Berkowitz. But from that point on, I went down and gave my statement to the DA's office. But Berkowitz sent me a letter from Kings County Hospital, which I'll give you a copy of also. And this was sent to me on the 22nd of September, 22nd of September, in which he apologized for trying to kill me. As a matter of fact, the sheriff had called me up that morning and told me to expect it, because he had sent it. It's right down on the bottom.
Okay.
Because the next time I saw Berkowitz was at the competency hearings in Kings County Hospital, and then that was about it.
All right, let me ask you, Craig, from your apartment, could you see the car house?
Yes. In the wintertime, it was no problem because there were no leaves on the trees, and you could see the house like fully from the back. In the summertime, with the leaves on the trees, all you could see is like the top of the roof where the louvers are.
Was yours a corner apartment?
It was like the building was kind of like a U shape.
Mm-hmm.
All right, kind of a short U shape. One side was short like this. I lived like over here on this side, the southern side of the building, the last apartment on, that facing the Hudson on that side. And Berkowitz was above me. And again, you could see Carr's house. Wicker Street was directly like down below us.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have an occasion to hear the dog barking?
Around there, you can hear a lot of dogs barking. You can still hear dogs barking there.
Did you ever see Harvey in the backyard, Harvey the dog?
No, if I saw him, it never even came to mind. Because again, that stuff didn't bother me. Because I worked evenings also. I worked from 3 to 11 at that time. But no, I'm sorry, what am I talking about, 3 to 11? I was new, so I was working days. So, I don't know, see again, that stuff really didn't bother me. Dogs barking, stuff like that, if I had the windows shut and the air conditioning on, it didn't bother me at all. Because at the time this was going on, it was kind of in the summertime. Because as a matter of fact, one time, which I really didn't think about, is sometimes my wife went away for the weekend, when we were separated, I would keep the dog. We had a sheepdog. And I brought the sheepdog up, down to the apartment. And at times I left the dog alone in the apartment, so I don't know, the dog might have barked or, cried or whatever. Because I would leave the radio on low, which kind of would quiet it down. But again, that could have been another impetus, I guess, for him.
Did you know any of the Carr family?
I never met any of the Carr family. I've never, not even to this day, have I met like the Carrs officially walked up as hi, I'm Craig Glassman. He said, I'm Sam Carr. Like he looked at me, like we saw each other at the awards ceremony, in New York City here. I didn't say a word to him. He said no word to me. Neither did Wheat Carr. Because from what I understand, Wheat Carr, after this whole incident, she left being a dispatcher at Yonkers PD. She was on the police list for Yonkers. She turned it down, and she stayed with her father. It was kind of like a recluse type thing for the whole family.
You never used the answering service?
No.
Anyone you know use it? Your wife did it?
No.
Any occasion to have you use it? By the way, have you been divorced since?
Yes, October 19th, 1978.
So other than what you've indicated of the times you've seen Berkowitz, you had never had any occasion to run into him at a restaurant, a bar, or anything in Yonkers?
If I would have seen him, I didn't recognize him, I didn't know who he was. It was just that he was there in the same place at the same time, but consciously, no. We never met, we never knew each other the whole time I lived in the building, before I lived in the building, the whole time.
Did you ever hear any shots fired during the period you lived in the building?
No, not that I can think of. I probably could have, but it does not come back to mind where, I'd say to myself, maybe I should either investigate or call the police to come up here.
Did you have your name in a mailbox or on the door?
Yes. According to Dr. Abrahams, and that's the way Berkowitz supposedly had gotten my name, was either off the door or on the mailbox downstairs.
And when you saw David in person, did his voice sound like the same voice that you'd heard on the phone, or was it different, or did he try to disguise his voice when he spoke to you?
No, the person on the phone did not try to disguise his voice. You can usually tell when somebody's trying to disguise his voice. It's either going to be too high, too low, or they're going to try to muffle it. And it was, very clear and distinct. But the one thing I did kind of leave out was when we got to Yonkers PD, I looked at him, I said, you know who I am, don't you? And he said, yes, you're Craig Glassman. So, there was one story that somebody related to me, one of the court officers in Brooklyn, when he was being arraigned, Berkowitz was going to say he was Craig Glassman.
Did you ever have occasions to go into the, St. Casimir's headquarters prior to this occasion in Yonkers?
No, I'd never been there. I'd been to North Command, but never to St. Casimir's.
I was just wondering if you'd ever had to run into Wheat Carr while she was employed there.
No, unless maybe I called one day or something like that, and she answered the phone. Other than that, no, I never met Weed Car.
Did you meet Yonkers cop at all?
The only cop I knew was a Frank Nappy who worked out at South Command, who had nothing, to even do with the
Did you ever
investigation.
know O'Shaughnessy? Yonkers cop?
Shaughnessy. No, the only way I know that is from seeing it written up in the newspaper under the crime beat or whatever.
Did you ever come in contact with the rescue squad, the auxiliary section of the NYPD?
No.
Working as a male nurse at the hospital?
No, because remember, working at the hospital was after really, 2 days before his arrest and then after.
No.
Oh, you mean at Yonkers? At St. John's Hospital in Yonkers where I trained, I worked the emergency room, but only during days, and I never really came in contact with Yonkers police, I think, except for one time, and I really can't remember. It was over some girl that had eaten supposedly marijuana or something.
Where do you work now?
Okay, I still work for Montefiore Hospital.
When did you start working?
August 8th.
This year?
No, 1977. Right. And I work for Montefiore, but I work at Spofford, because they have a contract with the city for the infirmary.
Now, have you thought back to your, prior to the living at Pine Street, where David was also a tenant, about possible ways he might have known you before that?
I tried thinking about it. I mean, I was raised in the Bronx. My father was the administrator of the Bronx VA Hospital. We lived on University Avenue. We lived on Reservoir Avenue. I went to PS 86, which was right across the street from where we lived. My grandparents lived on Valentine Avenue in the Bronx.
About high school?
No, high school, we moved out of the city in 1952 to Ardsley, New York, where I went to, through kindergarten, through, high school, and then to college, University of Miami.
So that there would have been no way that your paths would have crossed. How about were you in the service at all?
No.
Never in the service.
What were you in the University of Miami?
From 1966 to 71.
What, you had a BA from there?
BS.
BS. What, did you take a nursing course after that?
Right, after that I was going to work in radio and television. I started working in radio I worked in Burlington, Vermont, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, and I decided I didn't want to bounce around anymore, so I came back and I started working again in Ardsley at my brother-in-law's garage, and I decided, I wanted to do something that was stable, and I decided, I'll take nursing. So I went into nursing school in 1975. And then from that point on, that was the same year that I joined the Sheriff's Department.
While you were at the University of Miami, did you ever come across a guy by the name of Stephen Trackman?
Stephen Trackman? No, the name doesn't sound familiar at all.
I wasn't here when, probably missed most of this, but when did you first make contact with the New York City Police at the time of Berkowitz's arrest? That evening?
That evening, it was approximately 8 o'clock. It was about 8 o'clock that I went upstairs to check Berkowitz's car. And when I turned around to go back to the building, go upstairs to make a phone call, the point as I reached the front door to the building, underneath the overhang.
You came downstairs to check Berkowitz's car?
I came upstairs because I was down in the laundry room. That's on like the basement level.
Why did you want to check his car?
Because I had been previously checking it day by day, seeing the movements of his car, what was in it, if he was in his apartment, and I was told to do this by the sheriff. So, at that point, like I said, about 8 o'clock, that's when about 10, I think, about 10 plainclothesmen surrounded me.
And what did they say?
They said, "Are you David Berkowitz?"
What did you say?
I said, "No, I'm Craig Glassman." I took out my ID from my front left pocket. I showed them my badge and my ID.
But they spoke the first words?
Yes, because I heard previously that they said, I said to them that I'm not David Berkowitz was a load of shit. This is what people were telling me, that because, I don't know, this guy Klausner, writing the...
I don't know his name.
Okay, well he's the one that's supposedly writing the book. He told me that Zigo told them that I said I'm not David Berkowitz, which is a load of shit, because I didn't say that. They spoke the first words to me.
What year did you graduate from high school?
I graduated in 1966. Because in 66 I went to the University of Miami. I was there a year, and I transferred to Emerson College in Boston. I was there for a year. I had mono that summer, 67, and I went back to the University of Miami that next year because I didn't like the cold weather up in Boston.
So the first time you spoke to Berkowitz was that night?
Right, that was the first time, other if you know, again, I can never say the phone call, right.
And
The first time I saw him was the August 8th, that morning on my way to work.
how did you know that was him?
Because of the description Officer Chamberlain, Yonkers PD, gave me.
And that was 2 days after the fire outside your apartment.
That was this, that I saw Berkowitz?
Yes.
Yeah, it was, no, it was Saturday, they got the description, and it was Wednesday, the day of his arrest, that I saw him.
Oh, no, but you saw him, your fire was on August 6th, you said, right?
Right.
Okay, and then you said you saw him on August 8th.
August 8th? No, I'm sorry, then I meant the 10th. It was Wednesday morning, the day I was on.
So the day of the arrest was the first time you spoke to him, the first time you saw him?
Right, that morning was the first time I saw him, that night was the first time I spoke to him.
And there's nothing else that you can recall, or is there anything else that you recall that he said during any of the confrontations you had, either while he was seated in his car, or while you were driving to the station house, or while you were at the station house?
Not other than what I told you, other than him acknowledging he knew who I was, me asking him about the names and the letters. And then to show you how cute Berkowitz was, in the 5th letter, if you notice on the page it's signed Dem de Schmutz, and then on the back of the page he signed David Berkowitz. So I guess he was trying to be cute about the name, me asking him the names in the car. That's really the only thing I can really come across.
Now you said when he was carrying the gun in a bag, what kind of bag was that?
It was like a baggie, or one of those vinyl closure bags or something.
If you had number, I'll call back. No, it was a zipper case. No,
Right, one of those, like a baggie, food in there. That's a clear seat.
Oh, so you could see the gun. What did he do with
I
it?
couldn't see it from where I was. I could see he was carrying something.
Right.
But I didn't know what it was.
Now, when he got into the car, where did he put the gun in the bag?
Okay, I'll be right.
He put it into the back.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But again, I didn't see him put it in the back because I was getting out of the car and he was already in his car. Again, this was, something, that I'd heard at the DA's office. Okay, because then I ran up to the car and I put my gun to his head.
So that the guns, what they were in the back of the car rather than on the front seat. There was nothing on the front seat.
The only thing was on again, it was just junk, I believe, in the front seat, some maps or something, whatever.
Do you remember, and this is way out, do you remember whether there were any cigarette butts in the ashtray? Did you notice?
Oh, well, I mean, that's funny too, because I hate, I'm not a smoker. Not that I can really remember. I can't really tell. Because the car was dark up to the point when he maybe opened the door to the car, but I was standing, back from him, at the time, and I really didn't notice.
Did you ever hear any other voices in the apartment upstairs than David's? You mentioned you heard him talking to himself a couple of occasions.
Right.
Did you ever hear anything upstairs?
The only thing he was believing that he was a very quiet tenant. But other than walking around and stuff, I can't remember offhand whether I heard a bunch of people walking around or ever seeing anybody go up there.
Did you know the people on either side of him? Did you ever know any of the people upstairs?
No. The only person I knew was the paper boy, because he lived in 7G, which was...
You had an elevator to go upstairs.
Right.
And every day you went, you rode in the elevator.
Right.
Okay. Did you... Right. What would you
Not
say?
every day.
Well,
Because a lot of times, because I'm close to the stairway, and it's easier for me to just walk down instead of waiting for the elevator.
but most times you did ride.
Right.
Did you ever have an occasion to see anyone that now, when you think back, might have been weak car in that elevator? You've seen her?
Honestly, no. I've seen her since. You know, I know what she looks like, but not really. I can't, you know, really say that I did see anybody. Because I'm telling you, like, again, when you live in a building, you know, you keep to yourself.
Yeah,
a lot of times,
places.
you know, some places, you know, even because at that time I didn't want to be bothering anybody. I was in nursing school. You know, I did what I had to do. I worked for the sheriff's department. I kept busy, and you know, that was it. I really didn't notice what was going on.
Did you hear any activities in the apartment above you?
Like I was saying, you know, all I could do is hear him walking around. I never heard, like, you know, whether he had a party or not. You know, I don't think he ever had a party because it wasn't really that noisy.
Did you ever hear more than one person walking around?
Honestly, I can't really say yes. You know, I really, you know, I can't think back and say, geez, yeah, I remember in June or something like that he had, you know, another person up there.
Are you still living at that corner?
Yes, I still.
Do you know if the same mailman who was making the route at that time is making the route now?
I don't believe so. No. Because, like, we used to get the mail earlier in the afternoon, and now we get it later in the afternoon. It used to be, I believe it was a black guy that was a mailman. And I hardly ever even see the mailman. There was only a couple of times, like when I came down, if I was off during the week to get my mail, that I would see the mailman down. But I think they've changed it several times since then. Because I don't know if you were going to, Manuel Sousa, who was the apartment superintendent, I don't know if you know, he'd be a good person to speak to. Do you have him on your list?
No. What's his name?
Manuel Sousa. Now, what you're going to have to do is, I don't know where he lives now, but he is no longer the super. This was about a couple of months ago that he left. Because I remember I was talking to him about Berkowitz one day, and he related a story where UPS delivered a gun to his house. You could see it was a .22 rifle. And he remembers how, you know, like Berkowitz, he went up there because I guess, I don't know, Berkowitz usually, from what I gathered from other people, he usually didn't let anybody in. Or the police officers told me they tried going to his apartment several times because of the dog killings around that area, and they felt that, yeah, that's an area which I don't know if you got into at all, is, again, Officer Chamberlain had related a story to me the day of the fire that the reason they'd gotten information about Berkowitz was they had been talking to officers from New Rochelle Police Department that Berkowitz lived in New Rochelle. As a matter of fact, on the envelope of my first letter was the address where Berkowitz lived in New Rochelle. It was 174 Coligny Avenue in New Rochelle. Mm-hmm. And our department supposedly checked it out, and they told me that that address belonged to somebody who had just died or something like that, because he wrote on the back of the thing, your mother, the cemetery, you know, 174 Coligny Avenue, New Rochelle, New York. And he related a story about some killing of a dog in New Rochelle, that Berkowitz was a wild neighbor and that they'd thrown him out, and that he moved to Pine Street in April '76. And then of that year, that Christmas, there were killings of dogs. And they, you know, and this is how they related this with New Rochelle detectives. And then they started trying to, like, see Berkowitz, because they said they used to knock on his door. He never answered the door. One day they were on a robbery investigation in the building. They went up the fire escape to look in his window, and that's when they said, you know, that they saw the blanket over his window. Just trying to think if there's anything else. Because to me, it was so far out that, you know, the psychiatrist really couldn't give me a reason why Berkowitz picked me. The interview is continuing. It's now 4:30 p.m.
Craig, let me show you a couple of pictures. I know it's going to be difficult for you, but do you recognize any of these faces as having been faces that you saw in the elevator on any occasion, or in the vicinity on any occasion?
I can't really honestly say that, that I did.
How about number 6?
I'll see you tomorrow. For some reason, the face looks familiar. I don't know why, but it does look familiar.
Craig, can we shut this over just one second? Someone want to see me for a minute. Now, number 6, does that look familiar?
Yeah, for some reason, he does look familiar. I can't place it, but he does look familiar.
Does it look familiar for someone who went to college with you?
I really can't say. It's just that, like the face is familiar. I really can't put a finger on it unless I know somebody that looks like that, similar to that.
All right, how about any of these pictures? Let me just show you some others. This is a blow-up of the picture I showed you before, right? Does that...
I can't definitely say. The face structure seems familiar. But again, I cannot place it saying, yeah, I rode with him in the elevator, yeah, I saw him here or there.
How about number 2?
I guess what you should really do also is the paperboy, also Frank or Steve-O. He might be, I don't know if you have him on your list.
How about that picture? Does that look familiar at all?
No, I can't say that's one.
Have you ever been in the West?
If I haven't been in the West, not before Berkowitz's capture. I've either been in Florida or Canada or, Boston or Pennsylvania. Otherwise I've never been, farther west than let's say I took a vacation once to like the Midwest to like Ohio. My wife and I drove from Florida like through Kentucky and Ohio and then across into Pennsylvania back to New York.
But none of those pictures look at all familiar to you?
Not that I could say, yeah, I remember seeing that guy in the building.
Craig, this is Detective Bird. Craig Glassman. Were there any bars, clubs, discos, anything that you frequented where you might have run across David or David may have run across you in the Yonkers area or anywhere else?
At that time I was pretty well like keeping to myself. It was like I told you, I was busy with school. I was in my second year of school, and we were doing like rotations, like pediatrics, psychiatry.
You're an RN now, right?
Right.
Yeah, you know, what we're trying to do is put together a picture of David Berkowitz, and we're trying to find out, after speaking to everybody that he's known, as much as we can about him. I've never met him. And he picked on you. You lived downstairs from him. Apparently he did not pick on the people on either side of him. Now whether they were quieter than you or not, I don't think is really relative. I think it's just the fact that he chose you, and what we're trying to do is figure out whether it's something that occurred in Pine Street that triggered him with regard to you, or whether or not there was some occasion, which you may not even recall, where he may have come across you and developed a dislike for whatever reason it may have been. And that's why I'm asking the questions about your background and the way you've lived and the schools you've attended, in an attempt to determine whether or not there is something in the background that may or may not have contributed to this relationship.
No, because
Being only a one-way relationship.
again, I tried many times. I tried to think, why? They weren't really that. We were 5 years apart in age. I don't know, just because I was a bachelor, or because the only thing I think of is either he was jealous of me being with the sheriff's department, or he thought I was spying on him. It's just that, matter of fact, my reasoning behind moving into 6E was because of the view. Because they offered me 2E, which was like on actually the ground floor. And the woman, matter of fact, the agent told me at the time, she said to me, well, you can either have 2E or 6E. She says, but in the summertime, if you want to get a good breeze and a good view, she says the trees have leaves on them, and in 2E you can't see out, and if you're in 6E you can see the Hudson and you get a nice breeze. That was my reasoning behind picking 6E.
Did you ever use a swimming pool?
Believe it or not, I think I've only used it once, and that was it the whole time. Same thing, I never even used the sauna in the building, or even the recreation, because again, I should, but I haven't.
Did you ever have girls in the apartment that might have upset David? Other than your wife or whatever?
No, I used to bring girls from nursing school. I used to come over for dinner or whatever. And matter of fact, a couple that lived next to me on my floor in 6D were very noisy. Remember, you could hear them in bed. And the bed was against the wall. It would squeak and you could hear it. So when we were sitting on the couch watching TV, one of the girls that I have over, she started banging on the wall. That type of thing. Other than that, like I said, having the dogs come over, or the dog being over, the TV being loud. Well, according to the investigators in our department, which they had related to me, is they had people who said that Berkowitz supposedly had tailed me at times, which at least I was never aware of. All right.
You never had any incidents where someone tried to run you off the road or anything of that nature?
No, not to my knowledge.
Well,
Not that
if you were driving, you were right.
Not that I can remember, but there's certainly something like that I would definitely remember. The only person that cut me off was Sam Carr. And that was after the whole thing happened.
And have you since it's happened, have you ever spoken to Sam Carr? How about on the occasion when he cut you off unintentionally?
No. All he did was honk my horn at him. Matter of fact, I was going by the front of his house, and he just pulled out of his driveway, right in front of me, didn't even stop, just kept going. People related stories, I know the cleaner, the guy that's a cleaner right across the street from him, and he was relating stories to me about Sam Carr being like a very eccentric person. He didn't care what kind of language he used around people. They related an incident where there was a bank robbery just down the street, the North American branch of the bank down there, and Sam Carr, many heard was being robbed, he came running out of his house with a gun, waving it around. The cops ended up pulling him aside and, taking him away from him. It was just, he was this type of guy. Because I know in the letters, do you have copies of Carr's letters?
Yeah.
Because Berkowitz in there said, I remember saying that my wife and I,
Right.
which was kind of weird. And like, I think I was talking on the phone, in the second letter that I have, that you have a copy of, he says the thing about him and the Carr family will all be together in hell.
Right.
He makes that reference in that letter. Which again started me, after I got that letter, then I started to, wonder after it started happening whether there was an involvement, seeing that, Carr did leave the police department. She didn't accept the job on the police department and stayed with her father.
Well, when I read the letter also, that's why I asked you whether you ever heard anyone up there, male or female. Because he did say, my wife and I have been disturbed. And we can't sleep.
And to me, it wasn't a threatening letter. It was just an irate person who didn't like the dog barking.
The first two letters were very pleasant.
Right, well, if you notice, like in my first letter, he writes we. And it wasn't until, like, the last letters when he says I, he's writing in the, in the first person.
And thinking back, no recollection of any giggling female voices or anything. I mean, you said you went past the door of his apartment on one occasion, right?
A couple of times I went up there, and like one day I went up to the apartment, and I listened in at the door. It was the summertime. Now, in those apartments, the air conditioner is directly in line with the door. And what it is when you listen to the door, all you're going to get mainly is the noise of the air conditioner, whatever is, like the voice that you want to hear is in the background. And this is why I said, I heard the voice. It didn't sound like a radio and it didn't sound like a TV. He could have been on the telephone. I don't know. I don't even know whether he had a telephone. I know that. But I don't know whether he was on a telephone.
What was he saying?
Oh, I really couldn't hear. I could just hear a voice because the air conditioner, that muffled it right out. Because since I know I've been in the apartment before they turned it back over to the building, and I did see the writings on the wall. As a matter of fact, I have my own pictures. Some of them, this came out blurry, but you probably have your own pictures of it. That was by the front door. That says God Save Us from Craig Glassman.
Mm-hmm.
And this one says Sam Carr, my master.
Yeah, let me see it.
That one.
Mm-hmm. You really liked you.
Yeah, well, that's why I couldn't believe why he would put that stuff up there. And then the thing about Mr. Williams, I live in the hole and that crap. And that was like the first time I'd ever been in the inside of the apartment, but this was like several months afterwards.
And now there are tenants in there, I gather.
The third person to be in that apartment. The first people that moved in were people that lived on my floor in 6A. They wanted 6A is a small studio, and they moved into Berkowitz. Our studio apartments are a larger studio, so they moved into that. And that was like I said, about 8 months after the whole thing happened, when they turned the apartment back over again. They moved out, and then somebody else moved in who was very noisy. And then they finally moved out, and somebody else was up there now. I think a doctor or somebody was up there.
I thought they would have turned it into a museum.
No, see, that's the whole thing. Is at first nobody really knew it. They thought they were cute. They changed 35 to 42 Pine Street, which is a joke. And I have the thing that they sent around and said, this was 1,000,000 to 1 shot, and we decided we changed. You can't change the number. It's not going to make it. Which is kind of a joke.
Let me ask you, the rents in that building, are those rents average for the area or are they high?
At the time when I first moved in, and my first lease, that was a good rent. And I think at that time they were trying to get people to move into the building because I was paying about, with the indoor parking, it was like $254 a month. And, for that area, it's, good for a size studio that I have. Then, the rent went up to like $265 or $295 with the parking.
So that would be average for that area?
Pretty much.
Because Pine Street area isn't really the best area in, go 2 blocks.
No, it's like it's the fringe of of like the bad area. Like you just look down the hill, like where Carr lives, and then just beyond that, and that's whole, you know, run-down area. Mainly, it's a predominantly black area.
By the way, have you ever met Joaquin Neto, the fellow whose dog was shot?
On Wicker Street?
Yeah.
No. Matter of fact, I wasn't even, up until one day when because I'd never really driven on Wicker Street and Grove Street. One day when I drove, I didn't realize that Wicker Street was only that one little piece of street that runs down, like at the corner to the end to Warburton. The Grove Street was a street that ran down to Wicker. I thought that whole road was Wicker Street, and I thought the house that Berkowitz shot in was the one over here, which was on Grove, and it wasn't the one. It was, I think, a blue house over here, on, like right after the aqueduct, over there.
Did you ever know a name, Joaquin Giancarlo?
No, the name doesn't sound familiar.
So I gather what you're saying, most of the time you went back up.
No, I always used to either drive out Pine Street onto North Broadway. It was very rare.
Back up the hill.
Right. That I ever went down the hill towards Warburton Avenue. There was no reason, for me to do that.
Well, other than you said you had a cleaner down there.
And I really didn't start using him until really after the whole thing happened, because I used to use the cleaners on Nepperhan and Roberts Avenue, which was like on the other side, like it was east, east like towards the A&P where I shop. It was more convenient. And then I started using the one like after that whole thing happened. I used the one down on Warburton Avenue.
You still using that one down on Warburton?
Yes.
And then, now you said you knew Sam Carr as a result of having received an award. Was that part of the reward that was posted by the Daily News?
No, I didn't get any money. This was the one that Mayor Beam gave out for the investigative effort on behalf of the city of New York. And that's when I saw him, close up in person.
Who else was there, as you recall? Civilians?
Civilians other than Sam Carr's daughter.
Wheat Carr, right?
Right.
But was his wife there?
All I saw was Sam Carr and his daughter, and that was it. They were they were standing with the Yonkers detectives and the uniformed officers.
How about Casares? Have you ever met them?
No, I don't even know what they look like.
And you weren't at the awards when they received some sort of reward from the Daily News?
No, it made me very angry. It was, I risked my life. I was, everybody forgets that I was a victim, just as well as anybody else. Right? At least he didn't kill me, but that's a whole other story altogether. There's so much glory grabbing that New York City would look very bad if they didn't get the glory in that.
And let me ask you this, as far as the areas where the shootings occurred, had you ever been in any of those areas?
Matter of fact, when this whole thing started, when I sat down and I thought about it, when this whole thing, the Son of Sam, developed, in the media, television, I really didn't follow it. Up until, I think it was the fourth shooting, I think that was the one where I saw on Channel 2 and Chris Borgen showed how the style that the guy used. That's when it really started, I started to follow a little more closely. But, it really been in the back of my mind, I really didn't care what was going on, because at that time, too, we were issued a composite drawing of the Son of Sam that we had in our police vehicles, that we had on the dashboard. That was really, when it started.
Did David match the composites?
Not the one they gave us, but I remember the night they asked me to show them, they had composites with them the night of the arrest. They asked me to show them which one. I think it was the second one. I believe it was the second composite that looks the closest to Berkowitz or something.
Was it any of these?
I think it was this one.
Is his hair that?
No, it wasn't that outstanding. His hair was kind of kinky, but it wasn't frizzed out like an afro.
Does he look like any of these two? Or that one?
I believe this is the composite we rode around with in our vehicles.
And you don't think he looks like those?
No, he didn't look like that. Seeing now they did that to make it look like me.
Doesn't look like him, sorry. Doesn't look much like
Is
David.
it?
How about that one? That look like David?
No.
The hair, would you say the hair, how would you describe David Berkowitz's hairdo? Now, if you were going to give a description, and you've been trained, you've worked in PD for some time, how would you describe David? Height, weight, color of hair, eyes, and
All right,
so
when
on?
I saw him, he was kind of chunky.
What would you
He had
say
to
he
be a
weighed?
good 180, 190 pounds. He had, to me, I don't know, he had a rounded, chubby face. His hair, like I said, it wasn't kinky. I mean, it wasn't like an afro, but it wasn't fluffed out. It was in a style. It was like a close. Just trying to think. The impression when I first saw him was the guy looks like a doofus. A run-of-the-mill. If you saw him down the street, you never looked at him. That type of guy.
How about the color of his hair?
It was dark.
Dark?
Like a black or a dark brown.
As dark as yours or darker?
Probably darker than mine.
And did he have a high forehead?
Just trying to think. From what I can recollect in my mind, it seemed like he did. That his hair was kind of up here.
Was it pushed back or
It
parted?
was kind of like a little thing over the front right here.
Was it parted, you recall?
Yes, I believe it did have a part.
Mike, anything else? Craig, anything else that you can think of that might be helpful to us?
Other than trying to think of other people that can help you out. Like I said, Frankie Restivo, the paper boy, I don't know if you talked to him, but he'd probably be able to give you an idea, possibly better. Maybe he saw people in the hallway, seeing he lived across from me, he was the paper boy.
Does she still live there?
Oh yes, they still live in the same apartment there. Like I said, the one name I gave you, Sousa, S-O-U-S-A, he used to be the superintendent. But he no longer lives there. You probably have to get the name, his his next address from the management.
What's the paper boy's name?
Frankie Restivo. R-E-S-T-I-V-O. They live in 7G, 42 Pine Street. Because see, now there was an article that was related in the paper where a woman stated she was coming. Matter of fact, it was the big blackout, July 7th, I think it was 1977. Was the big blackout we had. And matter of fact, I was at the hospital that night, and I remember I was working the evening shift. I got home by about 10:15. But there was some woman in the building who was coming up the stairway, and Berkowitz supposedly was coming up the stairway, or coming down the stairway at that time. And the woman got very frightened, and she saw it. She said, "Oh, it's only you, David." I don't know if you had heard that.
No, I hadn't heard that at all.
So it seems like that woman must have
known who he was.
known who he was.
How did you hear that story?
No, that was again through the paper. There was a story in the paper, somebody in the building had related it to me. Because it's so hard with everything that's going on with the press and things start to seem like, they come together and you forget where you heard the different things. What I'll do is I have a copy of my arrest report that you can have too.
Okay, that'd be very helpful, because we don't have that. Thank you.
Not only that, is I had written an article, I don't know if this would be helpful to you too, for a magazine with a friend of mine. You can have a copy of that also.
Okay. Westchester Illustrated?
That's a local magazine up there. That specifically is just about the night of the arrest. And if you want this, you can get them, you know. his,
Okay, thank you. Good ticket.
You know, there was, over this, I even got hate mail, believe it or not. You have to have all the paper and stuff. Let me see if there's anything else.
All right, well, why don't we turn it off now? It's now 5 minutes to 5, we're turning off the tape.